meeting of June 24th, and I will entertain a motion to open the continued public hearing for Buckland Street and Leonard Street, the stormwater management permit, and the petition to construct a paper street.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, come forward.
Good evening. This is Lou Petrozzi for Wall Street Development Corp., the applicant. Since we last met, we attempted to address some of the comments and concerns the planning board had at the last meeting. One of those concerns had to do with the adequacy of turning radiuses
Yep.
for emergency vehicles exiting and entering off of Buckland Street. Off of Pleasant Street into Buckland Street. We submitted a turning plan at a prior submission, but we also had an opportunity to speak with the fire chief, and he gave us the indication that the turning plan that was provided, adequate turning radius was for his apparatus, his largest apparatus. Secondly, we discussed a number of things relative to the dead-end street issue being a maximum, longer than what your maximum dead-end street requirement is under your subdivision regulations. As I mentioned during the last meeting, we did reach an agreement with the homeowner at 12 Maple Street Extension. Currently, Maple Street Extension is a partially public way and partially private way that's over 1,000 linear feet with no connection, no turnaround. It also is a way that has no hydrants and has a minimal water, I think a 2-inch water main in the street. So what we proposed is a emergency connection between Maple Street Extension and the end of what we're proposing on Buckland Street, and also to provide fire protection in the way of a hydrant.
Yeah.
As you might recall, as part of this construction of Buckland Street, we will be installing municipal utilities, including an 8-inch water main and municipal sewer in the street, and we will be extending the water main as a result of our revision to the plan. We will be extending the water main all the way down to the end of Maple Street, Buckland Street, where Maple Street Extension intersect, and providing hydrant for fire protection in that. Currently, there are no hydrants on Maple Street Extension at all, so I think the chief was appreciative that we would be able to do that. And also, for his emergency vehicles on Maple Street Extension that were to come in, we are going to provide a similar hammerhead turnaround as part of a driveway reconstruction proposal that we have with the homeowner to allow his emergency vehicles, if they were to come down Maple Street Extension, to turn and exit Maple Street Extension back out. So currently that does not exist on the property. And then also to really alleviate his concerns, it was, we've agreed to do a sprinkler system in each of the homes to be constructed there, so that in the event of a fire or emergency in that particular situation, that the sprinkler system that would be installed would give the fire department an extra time frame for responding, and in a lot of cases save the property from being overwhelmed with fire. So those are pretty much, one last thing is we did add, I think one of the comments was for snow storage.
Yeah.
We did add an area toward the back of Buckland Street where intersects with Maple Street Extension, so that there will be available capacity to store snow. We, as part of our home, as I mentioned before, the Buckland Street, as it's proposed, is going to be a private way with no responsibility for maintenance or upkeep to the town. A homeowners association will be formed, and the homeowners association will be responsible for maintenance and any kind of repair over time. And that would also include maintaining clean, adequate access between the two roadways in the case of snow removal and other responsibilities for.
Also snow removal?
Yeah. Currently, as I understand it, currently the town plows Maple Street Extension, but just leaves the snow in a pile on the private property of the 12 Maple Street Extension, and there is no a place for them to proceed. I think we'll, between where you see highlighted in blue there, that's approximately the end of what we perceive to be the public way, since that's the area that's been paved. And then the remaining of that is a gravel drive. So when, in the event of when it snows, the town plows to the end, and then they have really nowhere to go. So we're hoping to create a situation that will make it easier for snow transportation through the two streets. And that essentially is what, where we left off as far as the petition for constructing Buckland Street. There is a separate application for the stormwater management permit, which is separate from from that application, so.
Do you have any formalization of that agreement with 12 Maple Street Extension?
I do have a signed copy of that agreement, but I don't have it for public disclosure.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Paradis, do you have some comments?
Sure. Generally, we would not, so as it relates to stormwater, first of all, this is not going to change the stormwater management permit.
Okay.
The only, and we would also defer to the fire department relative to turning radii and the ability to get up there. I would caution, and I don't know if he's taken a good look at this, but that little piece on the Maple Street Extension is a fairly steep piece, about 15% grade. So it may be too steep for a grass and plastic paver type, to get traction. So if depending on what the fire chief says, you may want to fill that little section with crushed stone as opposed to grass. Might give you a little more traction.
Did you have any conversation with the fire chief on that?
No, Phil just brought the grade issue up to me at one of our previous meetings, but we have no objections to adding stone to give it more traction. I think our main objective is not to increase the impervious surface in the area, given the nature of surface runoff being an issue of concern there. So I think we can certainly make it so that it has more traction. I think one of the things that Fire Chief and I discuss is certainly this connection will not provide an adequate turning radius for his large apparatus. It's not meant to be that type of roadway connection, but it will provide adequate turning access for four-wheel drive vehicles, police vehicles, and other emergency type vehicles that don't require the large turning radiuses of a 40-foot ladder truck or that sort of thing, so.
Okay. We actually do have the fire chief here.
Okay, great.
He's not,
Hi, Chief, thanks for being here.
Good evening. I'm not sure, I guess you want me to comment on the grade, so that was, that's new to me. I think in the scheme of the exercise that Lou and I did, not able to obtain normal access through the town bylaws, so I tend to start saying, okay, what are the alternatives?
Yeah.
So that's where we came up with the list that Lou wrote out. So I just do that exercise with everybody,
Yeah.
just to see what we can do, and assuming that it can't be a normal roadway through, assuming that the cul-de-sac doesn't fit in the end there, normal, and the length is too long. So in those alternatives, and when the 15% grade is steep, but in the whole scheme of things, the fact that Lou's adding this 13D sprinkler protection to the homes, I still think we're in a good spot, and I'm just calculating that on the go.
Yeah.
It does add some alternative access to Maple Street Extension if there was a wire down or a gas line down or something like that, that I could potentially still get an emergency vehicle in from another way. So that exercise of how that can help the surrounding area in public safety, I think that's a positive. So in general, everything I've gone through with Lou, it looks to me to be a significant alternative safety program
Okay,
that is acceptable in my view.
okay. Thank you. Phil, any further things you want to talk about for the open issues?
I think, other than the conditions we recommend in our
Yep.
letter,
We're good? Okay. How about you, John?
You guys did see Mr. Barbieri's letter.
Yes. Well, I assume we all
I was
did.
just reading that right now. I'm surprised it's not in the package. I couldn't see it in the package.
So if something gets to us kind of past the deadline, we just have it separately so it doesn't get confused. And we had already sent out the package at that point.
Can I ask you a question related to that?
Of course.
So the very this second point Mr. Barbieri makes, or the very first one he says, if the planning board has determined that Buckland Street is not a way in existence, why then would it approve a petition to authorize the construction of Buckland Street if Buckland Street does not exist? So did I miss that we approved the petition? Was that the one meeting I was
We
at?
have not approved the
Okay, so
petition.
that's
That's in
inaccurate.
front of us.
That's inaccurate.
I don't think it's asserting that we did it, it's asking why we would, right?
Where are you pointing to? Is in the most recent letter he said?
Why
Yeah,
then
if-
would it approve a petition? Oh,
Right,
okay.
So I think
guess
it's
it's in the
asking.
wording.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he's asking forward.
Okay, thank
Would
you.
you do that?
Thank you. I misunderstood that.
Can I ask a process question as I look around a nearly empty dais? Where are we with voters on this?
I don't think you have a majority to vote, that can vote.
Yeah, we only have 4 that can vote, right?
Mhm.
Is everybody, we're all still eligible to vote? And,
So Gary, I believe, has not missed any,
right,
and Mary
has,
also has not missed any, right?
yep, so they can watch.
So they can be exactly, yeah.
Yep, and what about Frank? He's okay too?
Yeah, I think he was only questionable about Whisper Way.
Okay, all right. But as a practical matter, we cannot vote tonight.
Understood.
Right.
All right, excuse me, did you have 2 new members out of, on the planning board now?
We do,
Okay. just-
right. And in order for them to be eligible to vote, we would have to withdraw and start anew. It's certainly your choice, but, okay. Okay. So, I feel that I may have an older outline, so, when's the last time we met on this? Was it May 13th?
I think so.
Yes. I have a current outline, look at me go. That's like a miracle or something. Okay, so we talked last time, I went back and reread the minutes, and I really appreciate your minutes Kobe. They're so detailed that it's really helpful. And we did talk in terms of the voting members that are eligible to vote being rather substantially united in their support of the roadway being designed to the subdivision standards.
Well, I think when you break down the act, I mean, there's two parts of the equation for those regulations. The actual road itself, with a paved road, that's being designed and constructed in accordance with your rules and regulations. The issues that are related to the waivers, meaning the sidewalk,
Yeah,
the trees,
yeah. We're going to go through that whole list of waivers.
ancillary items where we've requested waivers, particularly because of the width of the right-of-way doesn't permit some of these items to be included.
The width of the right-of-way, meaning
The
entire,
the actual right-of-way of Buckland Street, which is only the variable width. It fattens out in the middle, narrows in the ends. It's really basically a 30-foot right-of-way.
but as a practical matter, you own the property, right?
Yeah, I own the property on the southerly side of Buckland Street when you enter. So we're fighting a couple of, not fighting, but we're wrestling with a lot of alternatives because the Conservation Commission has jurisdiction over much of the property. They want us to move things closer to Buckland Street to get it away from the wetlands with her on the southerly side. And now we have the planning board wanting us to include sidewalks and other things.
It's
that
not so much that we want it, it's what the rules and regs require.
I understand. I
Okay.
understand. When we submitted the application, I think I mentioned that we just followed a similar application that was submitted on Barks Mill Lane and another property that we had a copy of their application for a paper street construction petition. We simply mimicked the waivers that they requested in those applications. Those applications didn't include any sidewalks. We do think that we could possibly install underground utilities in that area, so we would be willing to, not all of the waivers are cast in stone, they just simply request based on feasibility that we're looking at right now, so. But the sidewalks would be one thing. The sidewalk grass strip combination is usually a 5 or 10 foot width requirement, so that would extend well beyond the edge of the right of way. So we've designed it with I think under your regulations with a 20-foot width of pavement. I think there's a section, a category in your subdivision rules and regulations for a rural. I can't remember the actual section, but I do think that, is it a rural street or is it, does anyone know for offhand?
So I do not, but I can see that,
Rural roadway, something to that extent,
yeah, 20 feet.
I believe so.
So,
We can double check
yeah,
that.
so we did design this based on that, because there's only 4 houses on the proposed roadway. And the pavement width and other, for example, the way the drainage is designed, the road is tilted so that all the drainage rolls onto our property, which in a normal roadway, there's a crown in the middle, the water disperses evenly to each side. So we have the road, pitched so that it enters into the infiltration chambers on the side. So if you were to put a sidewalk on that side, you'd be interfering with the whole design of the drainage that was there.
So you're telling me the sidewalk would interfere with your stormwater plan?
I think so. I'm not the engineer, so I'm just relaying what my thoughts are with that.
If it was put on that side.
On either side or on that side?
On the northerly side, if you can see there's contours, the road is elevated slightly above the existing grade of the adjacent property. And without an easement to enter onto their property, we have sort of a 3-to-1 slope there, which is typical from the edge of the roadway down to the property to avoid having to encroach this. So that wouldn't be a feasible location for a sidewalk that would require a retaining wall or 3 or 4 foot high retaining wall along the whole line of property in that location.
Where are you in the Concom process?
Concom, we're continued because I told them, we're still waiting for a stormwater management permit.
Continue to when?
24th, I think, I want to say.
July?
Yeah, or, no, well, we've been continuing, I think I'm going back to July 9th, and then depending on where we are. So the two things that were, the Buckland Street aspect and the lots are on 2 separate notice of intents, so there's.
I'm sorry, say that to me one more
So the
time.
roadway is on one notice of intent.
Yeah.
And the construction on the lots are individually, notice of intent, so they're separate.
Does your petition to Concom assume the waivers that you've requested?
We've submitted the plan,
Okay.
the same plan that you folks have, they have, and we're trying to sort of sync them up as best we can.
Okay. Yeah, questions?
Go ahead, you go first.
No, I've asked a lot.
Oh, sorry.
No.
I just want to, correct me if I'm wrong, this is for you. The gentleman keeps referring to a right-of-way, but we do not recognize a right-of-way. So I would say that it's the standards for a new road right on his property.
So, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe, if we can weigh in. There is a right-of-way, right, that but what we have not recognized is that it was a way in existence.
Okay.
And there's a distinction there.
I believe so.
Here we go. So, so this, just for everybody's, if I can even add clarity, I don't know, for everybody's understanding. This is a complicated question. There is what appears to be a roadway across much of that parcel. What is not clear is that it was a road, a way in existence out to Pleasant Street, which the planning board has decided you did not satisfy that it was not a way in existence. So we are contemplating constructing a road behind the Pleasant Street connection. Once you solve the Pleasant Street connection.
May I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
So there is a way shown on the plan that predates the adoption of your subdivision control law. So that way gives us the right to construct that way to have access and install utilities, separate and apart from the planning board process. When we started this development application, we had input from town council that asked us to design the road so that it's in concurrence with, as closely as possible to the subdivision regulations, so that if
In
we...
concurrence, we have not said not in concurrence with subdivision regulations.
Right.
Just, I want to
Yeah.
make sure we all understand.
So in the event that we would then be eligible for an A&R endorsement for lots that might have frontage on that Buckland Street. So in order for that A&R endorsement to take place at some point in the future, the planning board would have to determine whether or not that was a way in existence prior to 1953.
Which we did.
So the planning board took an informal vote, because we haven't submitted any plans yet relative to that, and we have not submitted an A&R plan. So the planning board took an informal vote that we recognize and we know that that could be the outcome, but there is, under an A&R procedure, we would submit the plan, the planning board would likely turn it down maybe for the same reasons, and then we would have a right to appeal to court, and the court would decide whether or not it was a way in existence.
So we did decide, we took a formal vote that it is not a way in existence according to the planning board.
I understand.
That was a formal vote.
So in the interest of discussion, this particular property is unique in that it has frontage on 2 streets, Leonard Street
Yes,
and Buckland Street.
yes.
So, just for discussion purposes, I'm sure that we have adequate information to determine that Leonard Street is a way in existence. So then Buckland Street would be used simply for access purposes. And this gets complicated as you go down the road.
Gets complicated.
So it's a unique situation in that the property has frontage on two paper streets or
Yes.
streets. So for the purposes of rather than do a two-pronged type of permit process, we decided to submit in as close compliance as we can, the proposed roadway for Buckland Street and seek out the permits that were required.
Just for the record, there is no part of your plan that includes accessing those lots through Leonard Street yet.
Correct, but if, for example, the process were to, say we weren't required or available to have Buckland Street as an A&R endorsement, then that would require the subdivision control process to take place, in which we'd have to submit a new plan, and the planning board would have the opportunity to review that plan again in connection with the other waivers that we are requesting.
Right.
So that's like the next step in the process. If the planning board decided at that point that we weren't going to approve the construction of Buckland Street, then that would sort of require access to be off of Leonard Street, would then put the Conservation Commission in a position where they'd have to grant limited project status to those lots for access.
Well, I don't know what they would have to do in that case. I understand the challenge you face.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public who is here to speak on this? Mr. Terry?
Madam Chair. Thomas Terry, 17 Maple Street. I want to look at the map first before I ask any questions, please. Where are we here? Pleasant Street. All right, Maple Street extension comes in here. And there's going to be a snow dump in here.
That's what we were just told.
And that's going to be part of this, what's going to be determined possibly of a road called Buckland Street.
That's correct.
And in the future, about up here, would that block off the snow dump? Would that block off any possibility that I might, or someone who owns the property along that road, go on to attach, since this is now going to be Buckland Street, you might say, someone's proving it, I guess, or hasn't. One of the objections I might have would be the fact that there's now a snow dump here, and that could be a major stumbling block to continuing this road here. And this is, to me, it's really brainstorming, getting way ahead of the whole process, I think. Question I have, I guess, is, fire chief is here. Mr. Petrosi mentioned that the fire chief said before the fire chief got up here, he said that police fire chief said he could bring his apparatus down here and turn the corner, or at least negotiate some way. And now we're down to it's not his apparatus. If you call apparatus a four-wheel drive pickup or a police cruiser, that's basically a pickup, not a fire truck.
Right.
Or anything like that. So you really, that isn't a plus coming along here. I really don't see. And the other question I have is there a berm on Buckland going to be on the north side or the south side or both?
What are you referring to?
A berm on the side of the road, a 2 minute berm?
No, there's no berm proposed on the roadway. It's
No berms?
rural drainage.
So you're going to tip, all the water's going to be tipped towards the houses, right?
Towards the stormwater management basins that we have along the road, the swale.
Will the snow be plowed that way too? In other words, will the snow plow go down there and tip his blade, and then go down a second time and tip it the other way, or will he put some on the other side? And is that a...
I don't know the technique that they use, but it will follow the pavement.
Well, the purpose of tipping a road is to get all the drainage and any snow that might melt, to follow that over to the other side.
Correct.
I would suppose. If that isn't intended to, it probably should be followed. Let's see what else I say. Just a question for the fire chief. The apparatus, is it Maple Street extension in a separate street?
I think it's a private,
That portion of it is private.
it's private.
This part here is not, it's private, right?
Correct.
I think that's correct.
So, is there any possibility of vehicles making this 90-degree turn here, chief? Is that a possibility in the future, do you think, according to this? Is that what we're talking about?
So it was presented to me that the corner of the fire trucks would not make it, the template that I give the applicant. And then I'm trying to make a judgment based on, normally we have a cul-de-sac at 500 feet for a limit, so this is longer, and I weigh that against adding a fire safety sprinkler system to a
Yeah.
home. And that's just kind of a model that's in 527, the CMR.
Yeah.
That you do that kind of evaluation in certain cases.
Yep.
So I'm just doing the exercise here, and to me, the water that gets down to the end of Buckland with some of this access can potentially assist through whatever maneuvers to help Maple Street extension. It could assist in certain cases.
Okay.
So I just try to quantify that in my mind and say, where are we?
I think we understand. Thank
Okay.
you.
One last question.
Yeah.
Regarding the snow dump, it's going to be placed here, and my property is here, and the grade runs this way. When it melts, it's going to apparently be mine.
So we will ensure that that Beta has agreed that the stormwater is managed on their site, which includes the snow.
And for purity, too.
Yep, you got it. So I'm mindful of the time. We are excited about our 495 discussion coming up next. I just want to ask one quick question. Have you talked to the DPW about the water main extension and the hydrant?
Not particularly about the recent extension that we've made, but we did receive, at least for the sewer, not quite sure if it included the water, but the sewer extension permit was,
You totally want to do that before you come
Yeah.
back.
absolutely.
And then, just from a process perspective, I don't know if anybody else feels like we're kind of circling around this. If I understand it right, the question we need to consider first is whether we're going to approve the roadway petition and what standards. And then we could consider an A&R. And what we also just heard was that however the roadway is designed, that could conceivably impact your stormwater plan.
Yeah, depending on the waivers, it could.
Right. So my proposal is that the next time we meet, we walk through that list of waivers and we address the street, the petition to construct the street. And that at least gets us a step, one way or the other. Okay, when's our next opening?
So we have July 8th, we have something at 7:30, 8:30, and 9 o'clock. So there's potential to start something at 7 o'clock or at, so 8:30 is a new hearing.
Okay,
So there's something,
and what's at 9?
9 o'clock is the growth study committee interviews.
Yeah,
So I don't know how much time you want to designate to that.
yep. And what's at 7:30?
7:30 is the continued public hearing for Whisper Way. So right now that's got an hour, but it's not designated for an hour.
Right. And what's our next meeting look like?
I'm sorry?
Next meeting.
The 22nd?
The 22nd. We have a hearing at 7:30, which is 76 Main, 8:30, which is Maspinock Woods, and 9 o'clock, which is the Eversource LNG line replacement.
I'm sorry, Eversource what?
Line replacement, the
Oh,
pipeline.
my God. Okay.
They just love hanging out with us.
Oh, have mercy. All right. I feel like we need to constructively get through some of this. Is anybody willing to meet starting at 7 at our next meeting?
I already have it for 7.
Say it again?
I already have all our meetings at 7.
We'll take that as a yes.
Nice job, Deb. Awesome.
Great,
Take that
long
as a
time
yes.
ago.
All right, so this is July 9th, is that right?
8th.
8th, thank you.
I could do
I
7.
knew I was off. Okay. And John, would you let the planning board members who aren't here explicitly know that we're going to start at 7 ahead of time?
Works for the applicant, right?
I assume it works for the applicant?
Okay, I'll come at
Okay.
5.
Okay. Okay, so the decision would then necessarily be a week after that, is that right?
I believe so, yeah. The one in your memo is incorrect.
Oh,
I think it says May 24th.
yeah, that would definitely not be right. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for Buckland Street and Leonard Street, the stormwater management permit, and the petition to construct a paper street to 7 o'clock on July 8th. I'm sorry, and the decision, is it,
So
what's the timeline on the two decisions?
So currently, the decisions for both of them, for the petition to build the road and the stormwater permit, is July 1st.
Okay, so they would be July 15th. Sorry, Amy. So are you good with that? Yeah. Is there a second?
Second?
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And that's good with you?
It's good with me, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, good night.
All right. I'm keeping my notes.
Just a item of question about the, we have a date here, it's board actions for 1.4, second paragraph, it says due by 5/24. Was it meant 6/24?
No, so that was just, I highlighted it, but then unhighlighted everything without realizing. So I never changed it.
Oh,
And
okay.
It actually should have been July 1st.
Okay.
Yeah. All righty.
And, sorry,
8
Chair,
o'clock, the I-90, I-495 presentation.
just one point on Buckland Leonard.
Sorry.
So he has submitted the A&R.
He has.
He has. So that,
I
it's,
thought he said he hadn't.
I think he meant,
It's for Leonard Street, for one lot.
okay, so either way, he has submitted an A&R, so that, since the 21-day requirement starts ticking when they submit it, July 9th is when a decision is due on that, so at the next hearing, a decision as to whether you can approve that A&R or he has to go through subdivision approval
Yep.
needs to be made.
All right, let's make sure that we have that explicitly in the notes, and also let planning board members know, because we need those voters to watch and come back. Okay. All right, so there is an A, and I thought there was.
Yes, yeah, sorry, for the A&R, everyone is.
And
up.
it's through Leonard
I believe it's for Leonard Street in one lot.
accessing in one lot.
Yes. And since that's a new submission, all members can vote on that.
Yep, yep. Okay, perfect. Thank you, sorry about that. Dave?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, John, if you can get the presentation up when you get a chance. So the I-495 and I-90 interchange project is a project by the state of Massachusetts to do traffic and safety improvements on that interchange. I have put together a little PowerPoint just to discuss some of potential concerns for the town. And we're just going to go through that PowerPoint, and definitely like the the opinion of the board as we go along, and perhaps if we have time, we can ask the public if they have any input
Yes.
at the end. So just to give a heads up, there's two different components of this presentation. One is directly related to the interchange of 495 and I-90. The other one is a emergency services exit on Route 135 that's probably about a mile or two to the west. So I just wanted to call that out at a high level as we're discussing, and we'll go through each of these. So at the first page, the interchange concept notes, the, yeah, sorry, its construction is expected to run from 2022 to 2026. The reason for the project is well documented, like I said, safety and traffic concerns. So this presentation will not question that at all. We would just assume that the project's moving forward, and we'd just like to supply some input, if we can, of how it will be designed and constructed. And one of the concerns for the town of Hopkinton, this is my own opinion, I would like to get some feedback from the board tonight, is that it includes two flyovers that I was told would be about 50 feet tall and would be visible from Roosevelt Farms and possibly the Oak Hill neighborhood.
Huckleberry.
Yes, Huckleberry. And a second concern is that they're going to be reconstruction of Fruit Street Bridge. I can't remember the timeline, but I'm thinking it's a couple of years, but we can get some more particulars about that. But the bottom line is there's a serious amount of traffic that goes to Framingham through that. So that will be a big effect on not only Hopkinton, but the towns west of it.
The Fruit Street Bridge, the big bridge, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
over 495.
Yep.
So just jumping to the next slide, they propose three options, one kind of built on the other, and this is the third one, so it kind of has all the components in it. Each one of them, I don't know if you guys got a chance to take a look at this, but you can see there's kind of two flyovers.
Yeah.
One is Mass Pike heading west, going 495 south. I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of
South is at the top, or?
south at the bottom.
Yeah, right.
So right, upper right is headed to Boston, right? So you're coming out of Boston.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I got the cursor. Nope, not there, down below. So the right lane, yep, and coming down south. There you go, that arc there.
Yep.
Follow that left, that very first arc that's heading south. This is their map, by the way. My maps are coming up and they're even less user-friendly than this. There you go, that's it, perfect. So eastbound, you'd be coming in westbound from the east, you'd be coming in the right lane with a big bridge over the top and heading southbound. That's one flyover. Well, let's call that I-90 West, and then I-90 East would be another flyover heading in the north direction. The other complement to that curve. Apart from that, I think most everything else is your typical cloverleaf design, and I'm not sure if people are familiar with that. Some people like cloverleafs, some people don't. I like them because of the cost to build them and the cost to maintain them. There's usually only one bridge, so it's cheaper to build and cheaper to maintain. Other people like flyovers because, you know, you don't have to reduce speed as much and you're pretty much just going at a steady pace. However, it's more bridges to build and more bridges to maintain over the life of it. So,
Reduces weaving, too. Reduces weaving.
Reduces weaving.
so that's a good point too, because one of the big concerns they have right now is the way they designed the Mass Pike, because they wanted all the traffic to get to one side for the tolls. So that's why all four directions all come in together. And I think that, in my personal opinion, that's where a lot of their congestion and traffic happens. Whereas with a simple cloverleaf, that would solve a lot of that. Might not be the ideal solution. So I really don't know how to move forward with this and what we want to do. I just wanted some feedback from the team, because there are going to be some concerns about big, huge bridges being built in Hopkinton. So I'm going to take a pause.
Remind me again where it is in the process.
the design, right now they're doing the design. So they did have a meeting, I think about a year ago. I was not able to attend it in town here. I was thinking maybe it would be nice to have them come before us. I don't know,
Or send somebody to them. I don't know if they will come to us.
right. They've been very receptive. They had a meeting in Westboro, they had a meeting in Hopkinton. They were looking for feedback. They want to involve the public.
Okay. I'm happy to invite them. I think this is a big issue.
Mhm.
What is the hope for construction schedule?
2022 to 2026.
20,
Are you still going to be in town at that point? No, I'm just kidding. Am I?
getting out soon. No. Okay.
So I did know, just while you're thinking about that, just to add some food for thought here. You know North Street, and I think you were mentioning that
I
a lot
do
of the
know
traffic,
North Street.
that a lot of the traffic is related to the train station.
Yes.
However, I believe that a lot of the traffic is bypassing the Westboro Rotary, coming from Framingham as well. So, I could talk about the second
Yeah.
screen, which kind of addresses that more.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in October 2018,
Thank
we had
you.
an informational meeting at Marathon School.
Mhm.
in Hopkinton. And, excuse me, as part of that announcement, there's a way to be added to their email list if anyone wants to do that. So
Yeah.
I can send that out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you, Amy.
It doesn't say though at what point in the design they were at that point, if that was 25% or
Do we have any idea? No.
So I guess the big concern, in my opinion, from this interchange is just the height and
Yeah.
and the view
Yeah.
to the existing neighborhood,
Yeah.
so
Do you know if they talked about the Fruit Street Bridge?
they did.
And what did they have to say about that?
So, they said that they're going to need to widen 495 and rebuild the bridge completely.
Okay. And that's gonna take,
I'm guessing a couple of years, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I do have, go ahead, I do have,
That bridge is gonna be, there is gonna be no bridge for a period of time?
or maybe they're gonna build another one next to it. We can get some more details from it, but, so
they'll have to have a plan, but
So I have my next slide kind of addresses Fruit Street and traffic concerns. If we can hold that thought for a minute, but did anybody else have any input or questions about this whole design?
yeah. I don't know if I have a big opinion, just not being a traffic engineer or whatever, about either the flyovers or the cloverleaf. I wonder about, do the flyovers reduce sound impact to neighborhoods rather than extending out? I don't know.
So we haven't prepped our town engineer, not town engineer, our consulting services, Phil, but perhaps he would like to speak to it just offhand as far as what flyovers.
Do you have an opinion? You want to jump in on an opinion on a
I
preference?
know we
to
haven't formally
flyovers
asked you
versus-
to do this, so I apologize, but.
No.
Well, I'm not an expert on highways, but I do know that, the weave conflicts are the ones that cause, are safety issues and cause, because you have to wait for one car to pass before, one guy once it gets off and one guy gets
Yes.
on. So,
Yeah.
so the flyovers reduce the conflicts.
Okay, so from a safety perspective,
Right, and then also
is-
if it's a noise, trucks have to slow down and speed up when there's a change in velocity, acceleration. So if a truck can take a continuous speed through the interchange, then that reduces noise as well. So, I mean, you will be higher because you gotta pass 3 levels. Yeah.
well, it does seem like a rich area of discussion for the
Yes, and-
planning board.
Yes, and I know that there are not many flyovers in New England. I know in other parts of the country there are very many, but I don't know if that's, take that for what it's worth.
Okay.
Thank you, Phil.
Can you go back to the map?
Go ahead, jump back to the map.
So the black lines, the curve that's going north and the curve that's going south, those are the only flyovers?
Those are the 2 flyovers, yes.
No.
Yep,
That one there
yep.
as well, that?
No.
that-
No, not that one, that's just a normal exit, that's not really a bridge at all.
Okay, so, wait,
That and that
that
one.
one there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can kind of see it because they both go over 495.
My big concern, I drove 495 for years, taking my son to school, and Soprano Drive has a bridge like that. It's not 3 stories,
Yeah,
but it's constructed of metal joints. In the winter, it's treacherous. What it is it's a 2-foot swath of metal that gets very, very cold. And you have no control, tires have no control, even if it's plowed on that.
You're talking about the one in Marlboro, correct?
Yeah.
Talking about the one on.
I
yeah,
actually
the-
use that exit and entrance every day.
So are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little harrowing.
The TJX home office is right there for, not the home office, but the IT.
Yeah, so I don't see a problem with the ramp going on, as long as it's, sort of tethered, and there aren't many of those joints, but I'm wondering what they can do if we can have some kind of vision of what kind of joints are there, and is there any kind of action or prevention of that, because it is a concern, even though it's more contemporary. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's any safer, so,
correct.
and as far as the noise go, I've been, going back and forth from the satellite mode here on maps, and, perhaps it would be a situation where the neighborhood could ask for some walls for
Right.
blocking that.
Soundproof barriers.
so
Soundproof
the
barriers.
only thing I've heard about the walls is that they offer minimum protection and almost none past like the homes that are closest to the walls, right? They block it for those homes, but not necessarily the ones that are in. I don't know how much of an issue it is or how much of it is our issue, but it's,
Yeah, and I'm not sure because of the way it is, whether, how much they'll actually see. So we'd have to do a field trip. Maybe that'd be a good thing. to do.
okay. Do you
Next
wanna-
step. Yeah, so in the interest of time, why don't we just
Yeah.
jump to the second part of the presentation, where it says the following slides show 2 maps of the proposed, what I'm calling a half exit, because you can get off, but you can't get back on. Wait, sorry, wrong. You can't get off, but you can get on. It depends on which direction it is, but we'll take a look at the map, but.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll know what I mean when I see it.
Yeah,
So the first map shows a heavy use of the traffic flow from Grafton up and blah, blah, blah. Second map, blah, blah, blah. I think if we just go to the map. So the point being here, that just to finish up, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry,
no problem.
John. But the proposal will take a heavy flow of traffic off the back roads of Hopkinton and Southborough and get the traffic to and from I-90 sooner and more efficiently. And it could possibly be implemented before the I-94-95 project, which rebuilds the Fruit Street Bridge, and it would have lesser impact on traffic. So, this is my little sketch notes here. What you see is the back road there, Lake Whitehall on the bottom.
Yeah.
So, top is north, so let's just assume you're commuting into Boston from Upton, Grafton, whatnot, Whitensville, so you'd go by the lake on your right, and you'd come to, this is where it currently goes now, it goes under 495. Correct? Yes, no, it goes over 495 on the Fruit Street Bridge. Sorry, the Fruit Street Bridge goes over 495, and then down to like Woodland through Hopkinton, across, back under the Mass Pike, and then up into Framingham, where that circle is the Mass Pike entrance for exit 12, where the Framingham Sheridan Tar is.
okay.
So that's pretty much heavy traffic area. I've been doing that commute for a bunch of years, and we could do traffic studies on it if we had to, but I can guarantee there's a lot of traffic. So I think if you go to the next one. Let's see. So this is possibly using the 135 going under the Mass Pike. The emergency exits is a little, these are my notes, so they're very sketchy, but 135 is going from the top left to the bottom right. And it goes under 490, under the I-90 Mass Pike.
Yeah.
And the exit on the left side would be an exit coming out of Boston. So the rest area is kind of where that blue dot is, and you would take
Yeah.
a right turn. The state police do this
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time. They take a little right turn and come off the access road and get back to 135. And the other direction would be on the right side of the Mass Pike. There's just a quick little entrance right there to get on. You can probably do it illegally now if you wanted to, if you're in a really big hurry.
Possibly.
So
I've heard that it can happen that way.
by doing this, that would eliminate all that traffic going through back roads, through Hopkinton, through Southborough, through Framingham to get on the Pike. However, I don't know how receptive the state would be, because they don't like to have what I call like a half exit, because
Right.
you want to be able to get off and get back on.
Is this is your idea that you've heard
This
talked
is an
about?
idea that I came up with, and I
Okay.
talked to Gary, and he's thought about this himself before for,
It's been talked about, though.
yeah, I'm sure it
Yeah.
has, right?
Yeah.
It's not my own original idea. But,
But it's not in front of the state right now.
no, it's not.
I
No,
gotcha.
this is
Okay.
completely grassroots. But the potential with doing this is we could use this for just the Fruit Street construction if they needed to replace that bridge. So this would be something we would like to talk to, I would like to talk to, hopefully we as a board, the project team, and see if they've thought about any of this, and is it,
Maybe we could ask what their interim plan is.
Yeah.
right, is
Yeah.
is it a valid temporary solution? Is it a valid permanent solution? It's just an idea thrown out
Okay,
there.
all right. Interesting, and it's, right, there's no, you can't do it from the other directions.
Right. And I guess we need to be careful what we ask for, right? I mean, because if we had an exit off and on, then that area, whole area would be start to built up with, you know, McDonald's and whatnot's retail, because,
Good heavens.
yeah, I mean, that's,
Okay. All right, so what do you propose as next steps? I'm interested in this too.
so I think just to, like I said, let's invite them out to one of our
And
meetings.
see if they'll come.
If they come, let's talk to them as a group and get some, I'd be really interested to hear feedback from them.
Oh, DMT, what about the Harveys?
The what?
The Harveys.
The herpes.
May I ask, Madam Chairman?
Yeah,
Has Mr. Paul spoken with any of the Harveys regarding this?
I have not, but I do know in the past that they asked the state for an exit just for their trucks, and it was turned down.
This is not a...
so I'm gonna, if you actually are gonna speak, you have to come up to the mic, Robert, that's all, because nobody can hear you at home.
Do I have to go repeat it?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have ongoing questions, I'm sorry, I should have had you come up before.
Sure, okay, so I'll do that now.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Robert. And my question was, Madam Chairman, through you, if Mr. Paul has spoken with the Harveys at all. He answered that, no, but that he knew they wanted this in the past.
Yeah.
So I think that's the next step. Maybe they have a contribution.
Well, they certainly, it's a good point, because they can certainly use it for half of what they wanted, right? Because I'm sure a lot of their traffic is back and forth to Boston, and we get a lot of their trucks off of the back roads, so that's a great point. Thank you for bringing it
You know,
up.
while I'm here, may I mention one more thing? The last time I was on Cimarano Drive, I recall there being a Jersey barrier about this high. So that's below the mufflers and exhaust of most vehicles, except for big heavy trucks, I guess. But so that would dampen a lot of the noise, if that's going to be how they construct these flyovers.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's
Jersey
worth
barriers are
asking.
pretty solid. Well, I can't, think of going up 495, I've never seen the wheels of the traffic
Right.
that's on those ramps, those flyovers.
No, you're right about, you're right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's, but thank you very much for letting
You
me.
got it.
So just a quick summary, thank you for that, that's great. So for the 495-90 interchange, that's happening, and we just want to do what's right for the
Right,
town.
right.
That's pretty much, not for the people using it, because we all have a vested interest in that, but really the people that live near there.
Yeah,
And the second suggestion there, this little half exit on 135, the next step is, I'm not sure what the town of Hopkinton feels, like
I
whether they
don't know
want that
either.
or not. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's something we'd want to kind of do before we approach.
yeah, I
Those
have no
guys.
idea, and
Yeah.
I don't know the best way to find out. I suppose having a conversation with the DPW
Right.
and asking them at what the history of the conversations were, if they have any
Yeah, I
Thoughts?
can do that.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
Do you, it makes sense to me, if you're willing, for you to take point on the
Definitely.
scheduling
Definitely.
and working with,
Definitely, I would love to do
getting
that.
them in, so.
Certainly, thank you.
Okay, awesome. We blasted past 8:20, but we will come back to that. Do we have, Mr. McDowell coming in for the Wilson Street drainage?
He called me today, called me today and is aware of this, but I don't know
Okay.
if he's coming in or not.
All right, so,
We can, Phil could present. He has
yes,
the wires.
no, we're totally gonna have Phil present, thank you. So, Mr. Paradis, if you will come forward and give us the overview on the Wilson Street, that would be great.
So we do have the 820 Growth Committee, or we?
The Growth Committee, we're gonna push that off.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
thank you, Bill.
Thanks.
So, I think the last discussion we had a few months ago, you asked us to look at the soil test data that was provided for the soils that were on site to the trails at Legacy Farms, relative to concerns from an abutter.
Yep,
And so we did so in the, so there was two particular reports that we reviewed. And generally, although there is an issue with contamination of dyed,
Hyadrine or something.
yeah, I'm not sure how you spell it, Dieldrin? Huh? Dieldrin, there you go.
There we go, together we
Dieldrin,
got
there you
there.
go. So, and there was no, so there was a report done in 2017, and there were several tests done. They did not exceed exposure levels when they were combined together, and that's typically how they do it. They do
Buying the results?
yes, so, and then, so subsequent to that, we had, because of the erosion issues relative to the rainfall and also the site was cleared, we did some water, soil tests for the water the surface soils, and they were also not, they did not exceed thresholds for concern. So, however, because dieldrin is persistent, it doesn't deteriorate quickly. You just got to be concerned about erosion or being attached to soil particles and such. So, and right now, I talked to Peter Bemis again today to talk about the site there, and I went up to visit it as well, and about 75% of that site is now vegetated. So, and we've also been monitoring the stormwater pollution prevention reports that have been coming out of there as well. So I think the major issue for that site is kind of diminished as long as we can continue to monitor and make sure that he keeps his erosion controls in line.
So for that site is the Heritage Properties site?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
The additional drainage that was supposed to be, the additional drainage was gonna be installed or something was gonna be made deeper. Has that happened?
So, no, I don't believe it has. The additional basin,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what
Okay.
Roy is doing in terms of that schedule.
Yes.
And what happened to the pile of topsoil that was sitting in a huge pile by the street? Did that get spread out? And is that is that chemical still on there?
So there's a big pile oh, there he is.
You can come on up.
I didn't even see you come in.
Yeah, traffic was tough. I think they're repaving Route 9. Hi, Roy McDonald, Legacy Farms. For the two questions, the basin, we'd like to get started after the 4th of July, so that's something in progress. That loam pile...
When after the 4th of July?
Say again?
When after the 4th?
I'll check tomorrow with the contractor. He told me after 4th of July, so is it the 6th, the 10th? I mean, it's somewhere in that. I'll find out.
Okay, so how about this, before July 15th?
Yes. I'll make
Okay,
sure.
time certain.
I'll make sure that happens.
All right.
As far as the pile, I know they've been doing some grading up there, and I think it's their intention to move it into other locations fairly soon. Again, I don't have a specific date, but I can find that out and report that to the planning department.
So the question with it was, does that pile have that chemical because it was on the top surface?
It's my understanding it doesn't. I know they did some soil testing and gave it to the Concom. Concom wanted some additional soil testing done. I believe that pile is part of it, and I will find out on that one also.
Can I ask who they is, who did the soil testing
Vin Gately's company,
on the pile?
yes.
When was that?
Again, the pile, I don't know if they've done. I know they've done the site, and the Concom requested additional testing, which I know if they haven't done it, I know they're doing it soon, and I'll make sure they include the pile.
And can we set a date, through the chair, can we set a date for us to find out when that research is, because it's been months now.
I think it would be helpful if you tell me you'd like to get the next 3 weeks, because I can report back to Mr. Gately you want it in 3
Well,
weeks.
let's just pick July 15th.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I will make sure I relay that to him first thing in the morning.
And who oversees testing of that nature?
That's an LSP, a licensed site professional.
For the town?
Well, it's not for the town, it's...
Who oversees it for the town?
Well,
Testing of that kind?
What I'm trying to say is, when you hire an LSP, it's like hiring a surveyor. That you may be paying them, but they're gonna do what the law says, not what you want. I think you can verify.
It's their licenses on the line.
Okay, all right.
So, through the chair, I have one question, I just want a refresher a little bit. The soils were supposed to be left on the site, but the soils that have been found on the top, what, inch or 3 inches, 6 inches, have the chemical on it. Was the intention to, some of the soils had been removed? What was the history with that? I'm getting a little bit fuzzy because it's been a while.
Typically, what happens is if you have tainted soils, and Phil can probably clarify more, so if you have tainted soils, typically they're taken somewhere to an approved landfill, an approved site, typically. In the instance here, I think that was the case. I know the Deldrin, which was in specific areas, was dealt with, and it's in the ransom report. I don't have it with me, so I don't recall the exact details. Anything that's allowed to stay on a site can stay on a site. Anything that's not allowed has to be taken to an appropriate facility. Maybe you want to clarify.
Through the chair.
Yep.
Can we have that documentation of where that material went and how much actually went? Is that in the report, or is it possible to get that information?
I can get you a copy of the report, sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Is that the
Thank you.
ransom report?
Do you have
Is
it
that the
already?
ransom report?
Say again?
Is that the ransom report?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have that, and Phil
Oh.
reviewed that as part of this letter.
Oh, okay.
So we have it. I don't know if it's included in your materials, but I can, if you want to see the actual report, I can get it to you.
Yeah, I'd like to, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? I
Through the
see.
chair.
Yes.
Just point of clarification, when Deb asked the question, was the pile tested? He says yes, but then 3 sentences later, he said he doesn't know if it was tested. Has the pile been tested or not?
I think I misunderstood. What I was saying was there was testing done on the site. I wasn't sure if the pile specifically, but I will make sure they do test the pile specifically.
And then we set a certain date certain for July
I just want to
15th.
make sure, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got that loud and clear.
Okay. If you can give us a couple minutes, I'm going to recognize Katie to come forward, and then we'll go from there.
Katie Towner, 9 Kruger Road. So that ransom report I submitted with a letter several months ago, so you all should have it. I got it through a Freedom of Information request. And it documents the presence of the Deldron chemical. It documents the methodology used to establish its presence, and it concludes that the results for the test area apply to the entire parcel. So no matter how many times we say that it's only in one spot and it's not there, blah, blah, it's there. It's the whole area. The testing that has been done since was as a result of the mudslide that occurred last fall by the Heritage Properties. And at that time, the Concom issued an order of conditions that an independent tester test those soils, and that has still not happened. So the arrogance with which the order of conditions is not followed. There's a chain of custody. When you do a test sample, there's an independent person has to collect it, and there has to be a chain of custody. And that was not done. The contractor collected the sample. And I got Freedom of Information requests on all of that correspondence, and there were letters written saying this is not in compliance, and they ignored them. There were more letters written, and they replied, hey, we're in Florida, we really, maybe next spring.
So they is Heritage Properties?
Heritage
ignored you?
Properties.
I'm just clarifying.
Yes, Heritage Properties.
Yeah.
So there's been flagrant disregard for even the most minimum of standards with regard to testing. So, and the purpose of the testing, let's be clear, is not to establish the presence or the absence of the chemical, because that's already been established. And the EPA has already weighed in on the conditions for this property, that soil cannot be allowed to move off the property. That's not in question. What this additional testing is to establish whether or not it migrated to the Hopkinton Reservoir during the mudslide. So, no matter how many times we try to kind of cloud the information and not be clear. So anyway, the place is contaminated. All right, and it's just a matter of...
What was the date of the mudslide, Katie?
Huh?
What was the date of the mudslide?
It was in October.
Okay.
It was in October. So, yeah, I have all that. That's all been collected on a shared drive, because it's all been shared with me.
Yeah.
So it's available to everybody. I also have all the EPA records for the investigation they conducted about all the soil moving off the site and coming back. Because I have a CD of all the EPA records for that case, so I can share that with people as well. So back to the this basin issue.
Yes.
The main points about that is that in 2018, Beta wrote a failure analysis of the original design of this basin. And they concluded that the composition of the soil that exists on that site is not capable of draining at the required rate, and that is the root cause of the problem. So the process that we went through to get a valid engine, and they concluded that the stormwater report was using the wrong types of soils, they were using the wrong types of rake, the arithmetic was wrong, it was just a complete, not good piece of information to base any decisions on. So the process we went through to get to an actual design that was credible took 4 iterations, because after promises, we're going to come back, we're going to make it right. We got one piece of paper with no engineering on it, then we got a couple of pieces of papers, then we got a no-show, all right? We got a couple months delay, we got another no-show. So finally we got something, and it was voted on, and it was credible. It contained it replaced the substandard soil with the bioretention soil, which is like sandy soil, so that water will actually drain, and that the contaminants, which come from the road, and just one more minor point about the relationship of the contaminated soil on the parcel to what is being captured in this basin, okay? We have multiple documented instances of this contaminated soil being tracked out into the road. It's a regular occurrence, and it's been a regular occurrence over the past 5 to 6 to 7 years. And there's no reason to believe it won't continue as construction circumstances, evolve. Elaine wrote a 10-page memo, Elaine Lazarus wrote a 10-page memo documenting sediment tracking onto Legacy Farms Road this past spring to remind the contractors. I submitted pictures of they're supposed to clean up every day before they leave, anything tracked on the road. And, I would go up there every day, I live there. So I took pictures on a Friday afternoon, and she wrote the 10-page memo saying.
What's the date of that? The date, just so I can look back?
I think it was in March. It was in the spring, but I have it, I can send it to you. She sent it to me.
Okay.
So that was a documented instance of sediment tracking, and this is, and she went into detail about how these mountains of soil, they blow onto the road. They blow onto the road, they get tracked by the large vehicles. There's many ways that they happen, and the contractor is responsible for, at the end of the day, making sure it's all off the road, because if it rains, it's all going into the wetland. It's all running off. So the argument that we don't have to worry about contamination because the only thing going into these basins is road runoff is not credible either. Okay, so that's the only point about that.
Yep.
So
Can I ask one more question? This road tracking material is not just going to be from Heritage Properties, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right, but there's multiple examples. They have their own big pile of topsoil.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure I was following it the whole way.
Right.
Yep.
And the overland, there's an overland flow because of the topography. Yeah. Overland flow onto Wilson Street of stormwater. And you can verify that because there's a stream bed there, multiple pictures that we've all submitted. There's a stream bed there with exposed rocks, so you can tell that erosion has occurred. And it's been occurring for the last 5 years since they cleared Wilson Street with all the trees, and it's located next to the one tree that's still there. The one tree they didn't cut down, that's where the stream bed is. So anyway, getting back to the basin, digging a deeper ditch in substandard soil will only serve to create a pool of stagnant water at a somewhat deeper, 6-inch deeper level. So the EPA standard for stormwater structures is that they drain in 72 hours following a rain event. And this has never been the case for these structures constructed on Legacy Farm Roads and Wilson Street. So that is the standard. It is this whole obliteration of the valid design by saying we'll just dig it deeper.
Can I ask you to tell me the pieces? You started to talk about the credible design. It took 4 iterations. What are the major functioning pieces of that credible design?
It's the bioretention soil.
Yep.
It's that's mainly it. It's the bioretention soil, and then there's an outfall. So the bioretention soil captures the contaminants, and then the water drains, and there's an outfall pipe where the clean water is discharged to the wetland.
Okay. And the design change that happened was
is to remove
the requirement for that soil.
They kept a very small you don't even know how big it is because Mrs. Marlowe asked for a side-by-side comparison of the original size and the new size, and I never saw it. You know, when they changed the design, they did not do it in such a way that it could be properly reviewed, which was her point. And you know, I studied it for many hours trying to figure out, I still don't know where the pipe is going, you know, and I asked that several times, that outfall pipe. In the new design, it looks like it's coming off the top, which is absurd, because the pipe has got to come out, you know, where the water is clean. And then, you know, be pitched so that it goes out. But anyway, you know, I spent my many hours examining the design, and I didn't think it was properly, you know, you couldn't make a side-by-side comparison, and that was Mrs. Marlowe's point as well.
Okay.
So, in conclusion, this whole cry to dig it deeper, make more volume is not a credible solution, and it's only going to create a pool of stagnant water, a mosquito breeding. Every couple of years, you hear about, you know, some member of our community coming down with a mosquito-borne illness, which are devastating. They're life-changing events. And so, you know, creating a pool of stagnant water for mosquitoes to breed in, you know, I mean, this has been going on for over a year.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this for over a year.
I got you, Katie. And you'll have another shot at this if you need it, but we're gonna move back to what we need to request.
Yep,
okay?
that's it.
Thank you. Okay. So if I remember correctly, the design changed through somebody at the planning, not you, John, I'm not looking at you when I say this, but somebody approved it at the planning office without bringing it forward? Do you remember?
The stormwater design?
A slight change in the
Okay,
basin.
I'll go this way. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I don't
fine,
remember
totally
that 'cause
fine.
it
No,
was before my
John is
time.
yes, I know.
Yeah, it was actually pre-you. So we actually had, we had VHB look at the plans, and VHB, this is, by the way, the reason we haven't done anything is because we've been waiting to have this conversation. It's the only reason it hasn't been started. We had VHB look at the plans again, and VHB, after further review, thought by the way, the basin we're proposing is larger, not smaller, larger than the originally proposed. Grant has a little less soils, but it's a larger capacity, and they feel it's a better functioning system. So we had that designed, we submitted to the planning board, Beta reviewed it. I'll let Phil speak for himself. My understanding was we thought that Beta thought it was fine, and we were going to proceed to do it. And that's where we...
Can I ask you, did the Concom mandate an independent tester?
Say again?
Did the Concom mandate an independent tester as was represented for this, after the slide in October?
Oh, the independent tester is doing it for Concom.
And when is that happening?
Again, that's what I told you, want it by July 15th.
I'm sorry, I am totally...
You're talking about the
okay.
LSP?
Yes, thank you, okay. But,
That should, by the way, that should have been done by now. I don't know why it hasn't. I'm not
Yeah.
in control of that, but I'll make sure tomorrow the message gets through very clearly.
all right. All right, and then we also talked about the basin before July 15th.
Starting it. Yes.
Okay, do you need to wait for the testing,
Testing of what?
the soil?
No, because none of the soil's going to leave the site.
Okay. What about the soils that get out on the road?
The only reason I can think the soil on the road is trucks driving out of the site, tracking it onto the road. And again, I will get that message across not only to Heritage, but also to Pulte.
Are you gonna send them that 10-page memo from Elaine?
I will look that up, and if I have it, I will definitely send it to them.
Okay, because we're gonna ask our staff to follow up on
Matter of
that.
fact, if you would send it to me just in case I don't have it, I will make sure it gets to everybody.
Okay. Hey, Phil, can we ask you about the newer design?
Yeah. So, so the stormwater management systems for Legacy Farms were built with some agreement with the nursery itself they wanted all the water for their systems. So the water quality, all the rain gardens were built for treatment only. And when the issue became that there's extra water getting onto Wilson Street, we looked closely at it, and we had the design engineer evaluate it for what the flow was pre-construction.
Okay.
So that we could build the basin big enough to mitigate the proposed improvements. There's a small part of Legacy Farms Road North that drains into that ditch, and it goes to that basin. So it was sized so that there was no increase pre-construction, post-construction versus pre-construction. So that's why the basin got bigger.
Mhm.
So there was also a discussion about what infiltration rate to use. The design engineer used I forget, either an A or B soil for their calculation, which means they were using a higher infiltration rate. However, we knew from reviewing the site there at the trails that the soil was poor. And so we had them design it as a C soil, which drains very slowly. So,
What about the specialized bioretention soil?
so the soil is meant to grow plants and provide nutrients for the plants, but the volume, the issue at this location was the volume, not necessarily the sediment basin. There's many ways to design it. So, and she was right. The outlet pipe is above, so that you can have all the sediment settle, and you won't drain all the sediment out the bottom.
Is this water going to stand more than 72 hours?
It's not designed to.
Who is oversight for, so I think that we're talking like two different things, right? Who is oversight for the pollutants that we have to be careful about, particularly given the reservoir below it?
Whose oversight?
Yeah, who has to be satisfied that we're doing the right job addressing the pollutants, not necessarily the flow?
I actually think the Concom has an engineer that does that.
And what's the?
This is outside the conservation's jurisdiction.
I think she's talking about you're talking about the project, right?
I'm talking about the chemicals in the soil that bind to the soil that we want to not see trickle down into the reservoir, whatever that.
So you want to.
However that
You want to
works.
contain the sediment. That's what the infiltration basin's for. That's why there's check dams in the swale. It's meant to capture as much sediment as possible.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
if I may.
Please help.
Maybe I can join these conversations together. As far as I know, the contaminant binds to the soil.
Yeah.
So if the soil doesn't run off the site, there should be no contaminants off-site.
Yeah.
So I guess it's up to the planning board to make sure that, because in the SWIP, it was said no sediment is to go off the site.
Right.
So therefore, I guess it's assumed that it's also the planning board's jurisdiction to say no de-aldering goes off site either, as it's part of the soil, if that answers your question.
Yes, but did we just hear that if it's contaminated soil, it has to be removed and dealt with?
So I believe it could be removed and dealt with, or needs to remain on the site.
Things that are in far exceedance of certain regulations, I'm not talking about Deldrin. Deldrin can stay on the site, that's not the issue. It's other things if you have them. Now, we've done extensive testing, and there's nothing presently. I'll give you an example, like up where the the storage warehouses are.
Yeah.
We had fuel tanks. We took out, this is many years ago, we took out the fuel tanks. There was some contaminated soil, small areas, but contaminated soils. Those had to be put in barrels and I think went to New Jersey or someplace. I forget where it went. So there's that type of soil. There's other soils. There's a litany of different things. Sometimes they go to land line fill, sometimes they go to land line fill. In this instance, I think you, John, you're absolutely correct. In this type of soil, it's basically keeping it on site. The majority of the soil has no contaminant in it, but there are places that has potentially some deldrine.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? So we know that the soil testing is going to be done by July 15th, and we're going to get the results.
Correct.
How long do the results take?
They're going to have to go on immediately because it usually takes about a week to get the results back once you've done the testing, so they need to get on it this week.
Right, so then by the 22nd, our meeting on the 22nd, we could see those results
I can't say that. I thought we said the 15th.
for the testing,
Yes, but what results are you referring to?
the results of that testing.
Again, I don't want to speak for other people. I'm going to tell them first thing in the morning you've got, are you saying the 22nd of July?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yes, okay.
Yeah, I think we're already past the 22nd.
We're past the 20th, you're right, you're right. No, that's reasonable.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Can I entertain a motion to open and continue the public hearing on 9 B Street, the special permit for lots with historic structures, to be continued until the conclusion of this very brief conclusion of discussion?
So move.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you for reminding me. That was my finger crossed over here, and I still forgot about it. Okay. So do your best to get us the soil testing results by the 22nd. How about that? Is that fair? July 22nd?
We're going to get it. I'm going to tell him he has to do it.
Okay. Okay, really quickly, I'm going to have Katie come back, and then we're going to move on to our next one. Thank you very much. I just wanted to know if you had any final thoughts, Katie. 2 minutes to wrap up.
So just the results of this testing you're going to do does not change anything on this site. The site is all of the soil that's there is assumed, presumed to be contaminated with this persistent dieldrin, and that's nothing is going to change that. And the main thing to focus on is that the containment of the runoff to date has not been very good.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been years. We've been talking about this for years in terms of the stream that formed because they cut down all the trees and clear cut the, and the stream that formed and flowed out onto Wilson Street. You can see the rock bed there. Since we've been talking about this, they haven't not cut it again, but they can. There's nothing to prevent them from clear cutting that area again, and there is no zoning to protect, that. So the thing to focus on is that the structures need to improve. The stormwater structures for this parcel need to be better. And promises. I think you should be very skeptical of the promises. The last design, the only design we have that's credible is this one where the bioretention soil was there. And yes, it is expensive, but the idea of the plants growing is that also gets rid of a lot of the water, because the plants, some of the water goes through the sandy mix, and then the plants also take some of the water out into the air. So it's that's all part of the design, and it was designed in this process. That is the design that came out of this process.
Okay, I understand.
This backdoor change that occurred was was not an engineering process. It was, like I say, I got the information request for that, I got all the emails, it was
I remember, we saw it. So I am gonna take the action item to follow up on the design between now and then, when we hear the results. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just to build on to Ms. Towner's point, I sent you an email earlier
Yes.
today, did not send it to the rest of the board, but I'd like to
Yes,
bring
please.
that up.
Yep.
So I went on site with Bob Lamoureux, who is also with Beta, to the Northwest Villages portion, because there was some turbid flow coming off-site from there. And we walked the site, it was very muddy, did not bring my boots. I learned a very hard lesson. But Phil and I were just talking beforehand, and I think we're gonna set up a meeting with the contractor and Pulte and Beta to go over some stormwater management redesigns to get this under wraps, because there is a lot of fine sediment coming off the site,
Right.
even after the big rainstorm.
So that is really good news, and I would encourage that process to be really transparent and public, because this is an issue of some specific concern, particularly because it's a drinking water source for Ashland, right? The reservoir. Maybe us too. Does it come back to us?
Sorry,
Yes.
finish your question.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, just, you said the northwest, I'm just trying to visualize, is that the western side of the Legacy
Yes.
Farms North?
Yes.
Okay. Have they started building there, or?
They're not building, they're doing site prep, I think. They're moving dirt around. I don't know what they're actually doing. Maybe
So they're
doing,
doing some utilities, we've been observing their utility work, and then they're getting ready to make the road. And because they made they cut the road for, so they cut the road for the soil to the road, it acted as a conduit. And we had that, very large rainstorm, quick rainstorm.
For the entire spring?
Thursday? Was it
yeah, it was
Thursday?
last week, Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah. So, and it just funneled it all the way down to Legacy Farms Road North and down toward the Franklin Road and out that way. So it wasn't going to the reservoir?
It wasn't staying on site, for sure.
Right, it's,
Just a quick follow-up so I'm clear. So Katie and Roy, what we talked about earlier is like up in the northeast section, right?
Right.
This is more kind of like
These are
the
two separate-
southwest because it's flowing down.
Yeah, two
Okay.
separate things.
Yep,
I
thank
just
you.
wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, no,
because
thank you.
Yeah.
Beta sent us the report.
Thank you.
Yep, so we'll want to stay up to speed on what's going on with that.
yeah, we're probably gonna do the same thing we did at Trails, just make sure everyone, the contractor, the site contractor, the owner, John Westling, Don.
What's the expected time on that?
We gotta do it as soon as we can this week.
Yeah, we haven't set a time. yet.
Okay, so just keep us posted, and we meet again on the 9th. It would be great to hear about it. Or the 8th,
We meet, yeah.
the 8th. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All righty, I will entertain a motion to reopen the public hearing for 9 B Street.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed, any abstentions? Welcome.
Right there is good.
Can I get 1 minute for that?
Yeah.
That's where it's
While
been
he's
working
setting
for
up.
others, so thank you.
For the TV camera, look at it.
My name is George Connors, I'm an attorney.
Hold on one second. I'll let you set up, and we have a member that's gonna be right back.
I'm gonna be right back.
Yep, we have 2 members that are gonna be right back. We're gonna pause briefly.
Well, actually.
Okay, 3.
Might as well.
4, okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
talk about this right now, but just to, at some point, I would like to talk.
so we are on TV.
Right, no,
Okay.
this is fine. I just
Yep.
want to give you a heads up so that
Yes.
I'm not catching you at the end.
Yep.
Just to talk about the appointments that the planning board needs to make soon,
Yes,
so I can bring it up to everybody.
yes, thank you.
So that's Trails, Design Review Board, and Gross Dyke.
Okay.
And then I can
That's
also,
not here, right?
it's not, no,
Okay.
I'm not doing that. I just want to let
Yes,
everyone know that
okay.
we have to do that
Thank you.
soon.
Yep,
And then if you would also like, I could give an update on the Legacy Farms North Trails, the trails amendments that they're,
Legacy Farm North
I don't have, the trails.
Trails.
It's not on the agenda either.
Okay,
We had a meeting with them earlier. I don't have to, but it's.
okay, thank you,
there's
though.
just
Yep,
Updates,
yep.
more for information of the board.
I have to get some of those NASA, special NASA diapers so people can make it all the way. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We can't even do minutes.
And we also have the Haynes Farm request.
You're a natural born leader.
Couple hot days, people have been hydrating.
I've been hydrating too. You guys. Thanks. We still need one.
Reinforcement.
I appreciate it. Don't think I don't. I think we need one more person anyway because for minutes, we can't even do minutes, right? Right there, 5.
There's no members, good.
And the-
Technically.
oh,
Well, we can definitely do them. Oh,
In the meantime. No
so
issue.
while we're waiting for Deb, can we entertain a motion on the minutes, May 2nd, May 13th, and May 29th?
So moved.
Are there, any comments, any changes? On May 13th, there was one comment at the end that when Fran was leaving, and it was a her versus him. It should be him. Just thinking it's a... okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes with that minor change, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Awesome, thank you. Do we have to, is the bond release something we have to do tonight?
It's not something we have to do now.
Okay. Waiting for Deb, waiting for Deb. I think we're just waiting. Oh, here we go. Yes, thank you for your patience. Go ahead and introduce yourself and your project, or your, yes.
My name is George Connors. I'm an attorney representing Newbridge Investments. With me is Scott Miller. He's the managing partner of Newbridge. We have Mr. Miller has a project at 9 B Street. There's an existing old house and a garage. This is B Street here, and that's C Street up there. That's Route 85 and Walcott Street over here. So it's a small parcel in this area, and it contains about 27,955 square feet, and it has 132 feet of frontage, 266-foot lots. There was a line that connected that point, bisecting the front area here, and it has been merged for zoning purposes for some time now. Originally, there was a house built, according to the assessor's cards, sometime before 1900. Probably even before that, there was some historic mapping that showed 2 structures on that land, but in 1900, there was a single one. The zoning district is the RA, requiring 15,000 square feet and 100 feet of frontage per lot. I'm going to change maps. So what Newbridge is proposing to do is to use the zoning bylaw for lots with historic structures, section 210-117.2. And we believe that that would give us the ability to create a lot for this historic structure. The front portion is the historic structure from 1900. There's some additions in the back. Mr. Miller will go through some of the building particulars. But there's then the garage over here, and we would create a conforming lot with 100 feet of frontage and 15,000 square feet. And then under the lots with historic structures, we would have a lot that had 32 feet of frontage and just under 15,000 square feet. The building, can you pass that out or put it up? The building is got that typical gable end facing the street. The neighborhood has several buildings like that. There are also some built in other areas of the town, particularly as you go up Hayden Row and in those areas. The Historic Commission has looked at this particular project for two reasons. One was to issue a demolition permit, which they did, and the other is to look at it as a historic structure worthy of preservation. And under the zoning bylaw, you have a definition for that, where it's 75 years or more old. It's a little bit more than that. And it has a period or style of architecture that we would wish to keep or propagate. So what we're proposing to do is to create that house with a little bit better materials in the front. It would have to be moved over into this location on the site, and there is a proposed schematic for where that house would be and where a house that's very similar to it would be. So the Historic Commission, under that concept where we would replicate that frontage and facade and to the extent necessary with better materials, modern day, and create the same type of structure on the conforming lot, they issued a letter of support for that. We believe that it is a historic structure. There's several pictures of lots in the package that we submitted. And I think that it's in harmony with the neighborhood, in harmony with the area. There are many lots in there that are less than 8,000 square feet and have varying frontages, fairly small. The master plan suggests that there should be gable ends oriented to the street and the defining modern 1.5-story dwelling type layouts for that particular era. There has been stuff in the master plan about the particular buildings being required or encouraged to be saved in certain areas that make it complementary to the town. There are 3 or 4 or 5 sections in the master plan that said things of the gable ends oriented to the street were important, worthy of encouragement and preservation. The location, we believe, is appropriate. As I had indicated earlier on the map on the reverse side, there are numerous small lots and houses in that area. We don't think this would be the least bit incongruous. It certainly wouldn't have any issue with the adjoining zoning districts. Below that, on the bottom of the plan, is a business district. The DPW has issued a letter about the street and the services. They say that's okay. Board of Health had no comments. And we don't believe that another additional house would cause any traffic congestion. I'm going to have Mr. Miller talk a little bit about the building itself and some of the things that he knows a lot more about than I may.
Hold on one second. Just from a process standpoint, when is a decision due on this?
Yeah, 90 days. It's a special permit, so
Oh.
it doesn't have like an A&R requirement.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, yes.
Good evening, I'm Scott Miller with Newbridge Investments, and we purchased 9 B Street in January of this year, and we're trying to determine our options of what to do with the property. The existing home, you can see in the pictures, the front portion of the structure is historic, and then there were some additions done probably in the 60s or 70s, which are in significant dire need of repair or replacement. There's mold in the house, the roof leaks. It's been in serious disrepair for probably a long time. It is a conforming lot. It has 132 feet of frontage and 27,000 square feet. There's, as George mentioned, an existing oversized 2-car garage and house. Rather than exploring our options, rather than just come in as a developer and propose to tear it down and basically build whatever we want, we didn't feel that would be in keeping with the neighborhood. So the board and any abutters that are here this evening
Pass it back, Deb.
should know that rather than just propose to tear the house down and build a big house with a big garage and look out of character with the neighborhood, we went to Historic Commission and discussed some options with them on the property. And we came up with a plan to preserve the historic front portion of the house. And they were encouraging to use the zoning bylaw to attempt to get a special permit to preserve that house and put it on a non-conforming lot. We even went so far as to agree with Historic that on the conforming lot that we're proposing to create, to also build a structure that would be in keeping with the gable-facing homes of the neighborhood, and something that would be less detrimental to the neighborhood as opposed to building some big new colonial on the conforming lot. We feel that there's a need in the town to create smaller housing, more affordable. This is a walk-to-town location, so I think this would be something attractive and something that's not really readily available in town right now.
When you say more affordable, what is that, what's your window you're looking at?
Well, rather than tear down something and build $1 million house, try to build 2 smaller houses that are, more affordable in comparison to something that would be higher priced if there were just one house there. So, in order to achieve that, the economics would be to create the 2 separate lots and build something that's smaller and more in keeping architecturally with the neighborhood. So we went into Historic and got that approval and support, and I believe that letter is in the purchase package.
Yeah.
Question to the chair.
Yes.
So can you just explain the rationale about the frontage for the 2? Because to me, it looks a little, I mean, you have a 100-foot frontage and then a 32-foot frontage. Maybe you're just trying to establish one standard, one that conforms, or to me, it would seem a little more rationale to have 2 66-foot frontages.
It's, I would say it's the law of unintended consequences, that probably the area of Walcott, A, B, and C should be a village district, 50 by 100, so that existing homeowners that want to do an addition or want to add a porch or whatever don't have to constantly go in and get a variance. So, yeah, that would be great, but unfortunately, when they changed the zoning and just put an overlay of RA over the Walcott A, B, and C area, you're forced with 100 foot of frontage and 15,000 square foot land area.
So let me ask my question a little differently. So could you have made a 66-foot frontage?
No.
No.
No. We have the ability under the bylaw to create a lot which does not meet the size and setbacks for the house, the historic house. The other lot, even though it's not going to be a historic house, would conform.
So it's kind of our zoning that has put you in that situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd prefer to do 2 66-foot
Right.
lots, but that's zoning variance and what's the hardship we,
All right, thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna go to John.
Sure. So you want me to go over
Yep.
my memo? All right. So the property is being applied for under the historic special permit, or historic site with special permit, which allows the waiver of lot size and setback requirements by the planning board under a special permit. I won't go over all the details that they just explained. They explained it pretty well. So going point by point through section 210-117.2, lots with historic structures, my comments are that as part of the initial A portion, the non-conforming lot does not provide the required frontage or frontage depth. And both of these are not generally classified as lot size or setback requirements, so in my interpretation, the planning board does not have the authority to waive the frontage of the lot.
Or frontage depth.
Or frontage depth. And so frontage depth is defined in the zoning bylaw as 60% of the lot frontage must have the following minimum depth measured at 90-degree angle from the front lot line. For residence A, it's 90 feet. So basically at 90 feet, the lot width needs to be 60 feet.
Yep.
At 90 feet into the lot, the width needs to be 60 feet.
Yep.
And then continuing. For all the other standards, I believe they conform. It's that one that's the concern. So for 117.2A1, the Hopkinton Historical Commission has confirmed the existing house is a historic structure. And the non-conforming lot will contain that historic structure. The conforming lot will not. So what they had said before, Dave, to your question, they can't do 266 frontages because then they would need a variance for that non-conforming lot, because that also would not be waivable by the planning board. The proposed general use, being single family, is generally accepted as being in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the chapter, but I defer to the planning board to make that decision. And the proponent has provided no statement contrary to 117.2B, so that's acceptable. And 117.2C was undertaken by the planning board, or by Kobe and I, so that's all set.
Okay, and we have a letter from the zoning enforcement officer.
Correct.
That seems to strongly state that, or reinforce, that we don't have the authority to.
So the building inspector, the zoning enforcement officer, has made an assertion that once lots are merged, they cannot, he is unaware of a provision that allows lots to become unmerged. We discussed this. Mike is not here. I don't generally agree with that argument, because they're providing an A&R plan, which is the route that the planning board can unmerge lots. They're not saying that these are two separate lots. They're saying that they're merged by zoning, so they're technically one lot, and they're just providing an A&R plan to divide those lots. But the building department has said that if the planning board does grant a special permit to approve this, they will deny it, to then go to the Board of Appeals to adjudicate this.
But when were these originally merged? Like many years ago, or?
Pardon me?
When were they originally?
When were they merged?
65, when they changed the zoning.
Okay.
Well, 7 years after that. Once they're merged, and the issue here is frontage, 100 feet, the two lots have 132 feet of frontage combined as a merged entity. Once merger occurs, then the lots are looked at as a single lot of 27,955 square feet with 132 feet of frontage. And we can, if it went back several acres and we laid out a road to go in there or something like that, merger is, once it occurs, it doesn't let you do anything less zoning restrictive. You can then apply for a single-family house and have a not to be considered building lot on the left, and then go through this process here to get that approved. So I've had conversations with the building inspector, and I've drafted a memo to him. He is not going to agree with me. I think you and I are on the same page, though.
Okay, so you have drafted a memo back to the building inspector?
I have.
Have we seen that?
No, you have not.
Can we see that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll have you give it to John, and he'll put it in the record for the next time. So as a practical matter, if you're going to have to go to the Board of Appeals anyway, should you go to the Board of Appeals first?
We'd need something for the building inspector to deny in this particular instance.
Okay.
Therefore, we would have to file a building permit based on a lot that is argumentatively approved, and then he will say, no building permit, and we'll ask the zoning board to overturn that.
What about the fact that we don't apparently have the authority to waive the frontage or frontage depth?
That's a great question. I looked at that very early on, and I read it said that a lot may be created which does not meet size and setback requirements. So once we get that concept, then all the sizing and dimensional portions of this, the rectangular box that has to go in, I think are subsumed. If you assume on the other side of that, then you can't create lots for the historic structures that don't meet size and setback requirements. The bylaw can't be used at all.
The bylaw can't be used at all if you don't simply waive lot size and setbacks?
If a lot may be created which does not meet size and setback requirements, then there's no purpose for the bylaw. You can't do anything. You'd have to have conforming lots.
Can I clarify? Right, so it sounds like just the word frontage is missing from the bylaw, that we can't waive frontage, but we could waive the lot size and setback.
That's what we're
Right,
understanding.
okay.
I think,
Isn't part of the lot size the frontage? Isn't that how it's
Right, I don't
determined?
know.
So,
That's
lots,
one of those questions
may I,
that
may I
lawyers
answer that within a corollary argument? You approve cluster subdivisions all the time with lesser frontage.
So, yeah, we're going to just talk about this one,
Sure.
and we're not going to talk about all the other things that might happen somewhere else under some other circumstances, but we're just going to talk about this one and the information that we're getting. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, maybe Zach should look at this, maybe that we should have the bylaw have inserted the word frontage, I don't,
We can certainly ask Zach to look at it.
yeah.
John has a
Hold on one second.
Through the chair, I thought, in your opening remarks, I thought at one point you said the Historic Commission gave you approval to tear it down, but then you also said the Historic Commission deemed it a historically significant structure.
The zoning, there was an article on town meeting to increase the time period that the zoning, that the Historical Commission could look at a tear-down project. And we went into them prior to that to see if we could get a decision under the old bylaw, which was a shorter time frame. So we can tear the house down now. We don't intend to, we don't want to, we'd rather do this.
But then also in your opening remarks, I heard about the disrepair of the house.
Yes.
And so, is it gonna be the same house? Is it gonna be a historically significant house if it's in such disrepair?
In our well, you can, why don't you
Yes,
answer that?
yeah, so what we've agreed to do is repair what is necessary. So obviously, if a roof is falling in, we're gonna fix that portion of it so that it's habitable. You know, so if we pull a building permit, we're gonna be inspected, and it's gotta be habitable. Windows have to be functional, doors have to be functional. If siding is falling off the house, or there's trim boards on the roof, and the siding that are completely rotted, we'll repair that. What we agreed with historical, is that the architectural will be completely replicated. So the building as it stands may have some newer products on it, but it will look exactly like it does now.
Okay, in the interest of time, we're going to have to pick a time for our next meeting, but I want to make sure I hear from members of the public that wanted to speak.
Could I clarify a little bit on the
Yeah.
historical process? So usually, it sounds like this is what happened in this case, that they approved the demolition because they agreed with the plan that you presented, right? Normally, they wouldn't have.
No, we fast-tracked our demolition in case the bylaw of the town changed.
Okay.
So we can tear it down.
So it's been more than 6 months, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to ask you to make space for public comment. And then I know we have another topic to get to at 9:30, so we're pushing our time limit here. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Madam Chairman.
Can you go ahead and
You want me to sit
introduce
here?
yourself? You know what, the deal is that even if we can hear you, we have to have the public at home be able to hear you. So introduce yourself and then go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. My name's Drew Hoyt. I'm an attorney. I represent Brian Hunt, to my right. Brian Hunt owns and lives at 5 B Street.
Okay.
The immediately adjacent property.
Okay, thank you.
I brought some photographs that I can provide.
You can just pass them, we'll pass them for you.
Thanks.
These photographs, the upper left photograph shows, on the left side of the photograph, you can sort of see the end of Mr. Hunt's house.
Yep.
And the side yard, and then through the tree line, the roof of the red house that's being discussed. Mr. Hunt's concern, his practical concern, is that given the narrowness of the frontage that's proposed for the historic lot, that then opens up in the back, and the historic house is proposed to be relocated quite far back on the lot.
Yeah.
And very close to Mr. Hunt's property line. So in the upper left photograph, you see sort of in the center top, a big cluster of, quite large and old, very nice walnut trees.
Yep.
Those would be gone. I'm certain they would be gone because they would be otherwise overhanging the house, if not on top of it. Instead, there would be something there. A house would be there with, as shown on the sketch, an addition shown as garage, but no real rendering of exactly what the whole structure would look like when they were done constructing it. So that's a question that we have, exactly what Brian would be looking at, Mr. Hunt would be looking at out his backyard. This would be basically right out his back window to the right. So that's his sort of most immediate practical concern. Mr. Hunt supports, strongly supports, an effort to save that red house.
Yep.
He enjoys living next to it, and wants to work with the proponent to be able to make that happen. What Mr. Hunt's concern is the location, first and foremost, and what Mr. Hunt would like to do as the owner of the adjacent property that has a surplus of frontage, is to discuss with the developer some sort of land swap or something whereby the developer can obtain additional frontage from Mr. Hunt, and then therefore be able to move the house closer to the front of the street, consistent with the neighborhood, and that's what the other photographs here show. The houses here are that village style up close to the street, which is where Mr. Hunt thinks the red house should stay, up close to the street in that village style.
So I'm going to just stop you right there. We have no objection to you doing whatever it is you need or want to do, but that isn't something that we are going to decide, and certainly not tonight.
Understood. I guess my point, the second half of that point is that in addition to his practical concern, Mr. Hunt does have his own legal objections to the project that's proposed and would be opposing it in its current form, but would like to, assuming there's a continuance, work with the developer and have those concerns addressed outside rather than have to voice them here. I think we can probably work them out with the proponent.
Okay. So just for purposes of process, Mr. Hunt, this is the opening of the public hearing. It's not going to be closed tonight. In fact, we're going to wrap up pretty soon and continue it. At every public hearing, we continue to a date and time, place certain, so that if you're in attendance and you're following it, you'll know when the hearings are going to be. We haven't even talked about the outline, but we will have an opportunity. You saw that in the meeting materials. I'm sure your attorney would have seen them. We will have an opportunity to add items to the outline that are the planning board's purview. And in the meantime, you are certainly welcome to work with your attorney on any discussions you wanted to entertain with the developer. Okay? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Catino.
John Catino, 1 David Joseph Road, coming up as a member of ZAC. I just wanted to implore the board to take up Amy's request to send to ZAC that village concept. We did about 3 years ago, I think, that we wanted to do an overlay so that, I believe right now, about 78 to 83% or something to that range of the lots in that village area are non-conforming. And what we wanted to do is in that area to just bring the lot sizes down so that the planning board and zoning board of appeals doesn't have to do special permits for everybody that wants to just put a new stairway or put a deck or change something on their home.
Yeah.
It failed the town meeting. I just think that we may have sold it wrong and people didn't understand what we were trying to do. But if you guys could send that down to Zach for us to look at again, it would be a great thing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. When is our next opportunity to speak on this?
So how long will you have the growth study interviews take?
Uh,
Oh, it's blocked out. It starts at 9, so
yeah.
if we block it
I
out
think
for
we're
an
gonna
hour.
leave that alone, just in case.
So it looks like July 22nd, we could start at 7 again. We have a half hour, we could have a half hour for 76 Main Street. Right now, there's an hour for that, so it's 7:30 then 8:30.
Okay.
And then the next, so let me just say it this way. July 22nd, we have one at 7:30, one at 8:30, and one at 9 o'clock.
7:30, 8:30, 9. What's at 9?
The LNG line replacement.
All right, how about we put this one at 9:30? I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to July 22nd at 9:30. So moved. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and now we have a discussion with REC Hopkinton and our friends on the Affordable Housing Task Force. So we might, Beth is still here. Yeah, come on up. And do we need another chair, do you think? Or, Beth, do you want to just sit on the end here? All right, and then we're there. Thanks for your patience. Welcome. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, because somebody's new to us.
Kathy Sherry, REC Hopkinton. I'm here representing Paul Mastriani. And we have Liz Rust from the Regional Housing Services Office, who is an affordable housing consultant that we've hired. So sorry I introduced you.
That's okay. That's exactly who I am. Yep, Liz Rust. Thank you.
And we also have?
Beth Malloy. I recently became chair of the Affordable Housing Fund Committee, 190 Lumber Street, Hopkinton.
Okay, Affordable Housing Task Force?
Trust fund.
Trust Fund. Affordable
Trust
Housing
Fund.
Trust Fund. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Want me to do a brief, just recap?
Just recap.
I know we've got some new members here.
Yeah, and we did have a conversation with Beth and Paul and you folks and John. So as you all know who have been on the board carrying forward, we imposed a slightly different requirement that is allowed in our bylaws for them to construct and deliver the actual affordable units, and here we are.
So just as a reminder, this is the Chamberlain Wayland subdivision. We have 32 residential units, which require us to deliver 3 affordable units. Our special permit was issued last April of 2018, and it was agreed that we would deliver 3 off-site units. Within that special permit, it defined the conditions and criteria, one of which was the schedule by which we would deliver the units in conjunction with our certificates of occupancy. So we did, as Muriel had mentioned, we did have kind of an informal preliminary meeting just to start to understand what is this process. We're kind of the guinea pigs here. So I think there's going to be some time and effort between the two just to kind of work out what the process is. We've hired Liz to help us through this. She's very experienced. She's been great at kind of teaching us or giving us knowledge on what the process was, what the timeline is, what our responsibility as a developer is, what the town's responsibility is, et cetera. So in that preliminary meeting, I think we had a better understanding of what we needed to do in the timeline, and in addition to that, we had a number of kind of follow-up or discussion items that we thought might be appropriate to bring here. So I think from our perspective, if I jump into this, Muriel, if that's okay, our concern is a little bit about the timeline and how that works with our development timeline. Right now, within our special permit, the first unit is to be delivered basically after we build 10 houses. So before the certificate of occupancy is issued on the 11th unit. And then the second one is on the 21st unit, and then the last one is on the 31st unit. Looking at the current timeframes, just getting the program approved, getting the individual unit approved with the state, we're talking anywhere from 6 to 12 months as a timeline to get that through the approval process, get an actual lottery, buyer, everything, and close. So with that, we're a little concerned about how that works with our development timeframe. And I think we'd like to see if there's some flexibility on the planning board side about potentially moving that and giving us a little bit more leeway as far as delivering that first unit potentially at the 20th unit. that would give us enough time to work out the process, as well as the ongoing oversight that's required by the town. I think the other point we want to discuss is, given the low inventory of homes, especially kind of at that affordable price range, what will be maintainable ongoing, and how quickly the market turns over, that part of our condition is that the planning board has to approve the unit. So we'd like to understand what that approval process would be. We fully intend to find the unit, inspect, and close within 30 days. So, and we want to get the unit off to the state for approval. So we're going to need to understand how we work with the planning board and how that can be expedited and what the criteria is there. So I think that's probably the highlight from our perspective, what we're looking for, some direction and answers.
Perfect. And just in full disclosure to the public and to board members and so forth, we did talk in terms of hoping that we could be flexible within this process with our first person through the process, because they are obviously helping us actually construct and develop the process that we're going to use going forward. I did ask John to research exactly what we need to do if we're going to entertain that in terms of the special permit.
So the things that we talked about was what Kathy said. How is it defined, the schedule itself? And it is defined in the special permit as a condition. So it provides the schedule, like Kathy said, 11th unit certificate of occupancy is when the first unit needs to be provided.
And just for the public and for everybody, that's when the payments happen, if we have the payments in lieu of.
So I think to remedy that, you would just need a minor amendment to change that condition. That would just be changing it to either having the 2 units delivered at the 21st certificate of occupancy, or the
2
first
units.
unit at the 20th and the second unit at the 21st, or however you want to organize that.
Okay. And then the other one was approving the unit.
Right, so I looked into that a little bit more, and it's the location of the units, which I think is a little bit different than what we had talked about.
Okay.
So when I was thinking about the approval of the units, it was, and I think this is how maybe I was explaining it, is the planning board has to approve like the design of the unit. It was really just the location of the unit.
Okay.
So I don't know if the planning board is amenable to, when you guys identify it, bring it to the planning board, and then we can talk about it as a non-hearing item, and then the planning board can just.
Or I would toss up for consideration, because of the pace of the housing market, allowing professional staff potentially to do that approving. I don't know, I put that out there for people to consider.
So maybe I could just
Yes.
provide a little overview of the state's involvement with the process. So these are going through what they call the LIP program, Local Initiative Program, and the state would be doing a 3-part approval at different times. One is the approval of the Chamberlain, Wayland off-site units, right? So that would be the program level. And then each individual address and specific property would be given to the state for approval with the lead inspection and the home inspection for them to approve that unit to be added to the program, and then they approve the actual buyer. So they do a very thorough vetting in addition to whatever local process you have here.
Perfect, thank you.
So if I may, Madam
Yeah.
Chair, I think the determination of the location of the unit is really so that if it's in a historic district, all of the processes are followed through on. You're not making an area of town where all of the affordable units are just kind of being sequestered. It's that kind of overview, not necessarily, oh, is this the right place for it when there's these amenities versus over here, you know. It's more of like making sure it's spread out through town and making sure that there's no historic structures that are not being looked at.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I ask
Yes,
a question?
absolutely.
Why would we move 3 affordable units off-site? Why do they have to be
Why
off-
did we?
No, why would they have to be off-site?
So I'll answer the question here. The easy answer is they don't have to be moved off-site. A piece of the learning that we did with Chamberlain and Wayland is that if we are going forward, if we are going to contemplate requiring the units on the plan, that really has to come at the beginning, because that impacts the number of units and the way that they present their plan in its entirety. So that's a piece of learning that we did on Chamberlain and Wayland. So it is something to keep in mind going forward if we are going to want units in a particular location, within a development like this. We need to broach that subject early in the process.
And we had 3 choices, and at the time we chose this one. We could have requested funds in lieu, a payment in lieu. We could have requested on-site, and we could have requested the off-site, which is so.
Well, at the end of the process, we really couldn't have asked for the units on site. I mean.
But we had discussed it along the way a little bit, right?
A little bit,
Yeah.
right? But if we're gonna be serious about that, if it's something, we should probably add it to our agendas. The outline, hearing outlines, it should be up front if we're gonna do it, because it's part and parcel of the overall planning.
Just to be clear, if I might, isn't the choice up to the applicant?
No, it's the planning board's purview. Now, we heard the attorney at town meeting say differently for the property on, in the Osmond. So, but within our bylaws, it's within our purview. Yes.
I'd like to also add that when we did talk about it, Amy, they did offer us 3 houses on site, well, in the development, that would have been on smaller lots, smaller homes. And I think what the Affordable Housing Fund Committee is going for right now is let's get the houses out in the neighborhood. We didn't want them to be identified as the affordable housing units.
So I don't think it was ever offered that we would put them into this.
No, not for our particular. We had a brief discussion saying we would have changed our site plan and gone up to at least 35 units.
Yes, that particular option, we understood when we broached the subject in detail, was not really going to be possible here. It is possible going forward, and everything you just said is something the planning board needs to be mindful of. We don't want the units to be identifiable as the affordable units.
And I can, if I can speak for my committee, I'd like to say that we would like to see more of the houses sprinkled throughout our neighborhoods and incorporate them into the neighborhood so they're not sequestered into the condos and different areas of town. So that's where we're moving as a committee, moving forward, and hoping you guys have our back.
Yeah, so I don't expect that there'd be any pushback on that, but it will help us as you guys get, I'm very excited that you're getting up and running. As you get up and running and you have direction for the planning board, make sure you put it forward so that we have the opportunity to work within it, and also hopefully have your back as you put it.
Through the chair?
Yes.
John made a comment earlier. Does the state monitor where you're putting your affordable housing? So like you don't get that cluster?
No.
They don't? Okay.
Unfortunately, no. And a lot of the work going forward, they don't, right? Did I just answer?
Well, I think it depends on the program. Certainly in the 40B program, the individual site locations of the affordable units are very regulated and reviewed. There's more leeway in local special permits.
Okay.
And then even with the off-site units, there's complete leeway.
Part of what we might endeavor to do is take advantage of the learning that we can do on this too, and really get a little bit more fluent on what the possibilities are and what the regulations are and what our responsibility is within it. Yeah.
Through the chair. So you're obviously coming tonight to ask for some scheduling relief. Like, do you have a schedule, like a project schedule? Like, is there something you could provide that says, this is what we see the schedule to deliver that unit? Like, if it's agreed upon to have an affordable housing unit by the 10th developed, well, just extend the date. I have no information to say that's a good thing to do.
Just from a process perspective, that would be an amendment to the special permit. So it'll come before us as a minor change, and we would have a timeline and dates to impact, correct?
Yes, we can provide the project schedule and the current build schedule and how that would align with the proposed changes that we're asking for, or how it does not align well with the current state approval process, and then the whole lottery and buyer selection, and why we're asking for the relief.
And one follow-up question. Is there any either existing dwellings or land that could be purchased today for sale in Hopkinton that would fall into affordable housing where it wouldn't be at a significant loss?
Well, that's what we will be doing. We're going to, those houses that are on the market now, we're looking at those and looking at, do we think it'll meet the state criteria, the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, is it updated enough, et cetera? And then we're purchasing them.
But have you done any looking today to know if anything's on the market
Yes,
today?
There's 3 or 4
3 or 4.
units that we're looking at as options. Yes.
And do you have any knowledge of like what the time on market for something like that is in Hopkinton? Average, like is it 5 days? Is it 50 days? Is it?
I don't know specifically across the units. One of the units has been on the market, if that's what you're asking me, for a number of days. The others are new to the market. And we felt before we had this meeting and before we really understood the process, we were hesitant to jump on a unit because we can be required to close on the unit before it's been approved. So that's some of the concern about making sure we understand the process. The houses that are within the price range that we're targeting turn over pretty quickly. I've been looking for the last few months and things are gone. We didn't jump on them. There's a couple things still out there and a couple new things.
So, Madam Chair, if I may clarify, I don't know if there's any confusion, but just so the board is on the same page, the proponent is looking to buy a market rate home. They go through a process with DHCD to then convert it to a affordable home that's sellable, rentable. I guess you're just doing home ownership, right? That's at a certain area median income. So they basically pay the market rate, then put a deed rider on the house so that it's profit limited. So the person who owns it cannot sell it for market rate. They have to sell it based on a formula. So they're basically paying to then sell it at a lower amount. So they're not, and the affordable housing units on the market, there's actually a wait list. So they're pretty in demand.
Related question to that, do they also do a maximum salary for the purchasers?
Yeah, the state.
That's all regulated through the
by the
purchase
state.
program. Yeah, so Liz, Ms. Rust will do the lottery where they select the person to purchase it, and then it's a formula based on the area median income and the housing costs.
Yeah, Amy.
I just wanted to add, I agree with Muriel that we need to be able to delegate someone else to act quickly to approve the lot, because whether we designate John or Muriel or the chair, I don't know. That the market moves quickly, we understand that.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? So process-wise for the special permit minor amendment, do we?
I don't think it needs to be noticed.
If the board decides.
Yeah, if the board decides it's a minor amendment.
Okay.
It's just an amendment to a condition.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be noticed. It can be.
You can vote on it now.
No, I can't.
It's not on the agenda.
It's us.
Yeah, I guess the minor amendment's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
The discussion is
Yeah.
on the agenda,
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But we could do it next
Trying
time.
to fast track it,
Yeah,
you know?
no, I appreciate that. We could, I certainly feel like that there is support around, I should ask, is there support around the table for these minor amendments? Certainly you suggested that there was for, I would suggest professional staff, to be honest with you. None of us have that kind of flexibility in our schedules. If that works for you, it makes sense to me.
It does, and if I may make a suggestion.
Yep.
Saying professional staff and then giving certain criteria so that in the future, there's a precedent for what that decision is based on. So.
Yeah, come up with that criteria, let us know.
I can come up with basically.
Between now and when they come forward with that minor amendment, that'd be great.
In the same vein of just making sure that it's not all in one location.
Right,
Yeah,
and particularly
exactly.
where we are, any of those kinds of things where we are establishing, a new process that we hope will be durable and sustainable. I think that's important.
And the extension of the timeline, I think we wanted more info before we
Yes,
decide on that.
yes, we're gonna, all at once,
Well,
we'll
do we need
discuss
the
it.
extension of the timeline if it's just the location?
We do need the extension of the timeline because of their construction
Okay.
timeline and the
okay,
work
for
that
theirs
has
We're
gone.
going to lay that out in our amendment
Yeah,
request.
yeah,
So that you
perfect.
all feel comfortable with why we're.
So through the chair, though, the point that John made, it's just about the location, would you still need that extended timeline?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Because
Yeah.
the location just has to do with the selection of the unit. Once that we identify the unit, it has to go through, I'll call it the affordable process, probably not the right term, but the whole affordable process.
So you have to go to the
Yeah.
state and it could take 6 to 12 months, you said?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And there'll be processes that we're setting up in town too that are different and, you know, hopefully durable and sustainable and all those things.
Right. And ongoing the town in
Yeah,
conjunction with
and
the state is responsible.
I just want to reiterate, I mean, I am totally open to this idea, particularly because of the learning opportunity. We are actually utilizing this project and these units to establish a process going forward, and I appreciate that from the developer a lot.
I think it's a great concept, but it's kind of interesting because it puts the developer as now a purchaser instead of a seller.
Yeah, and it keeps us out of the development world, which I think anytime we can do that, it makes the most sense for the town. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, John, you had, if only I could find my agenda again. So you're gonna have to help me because I tucked it away somewhere.
Now, I know Roy loves coming to our meetings, but why is he still there?
Appointments discussion.
Yes, so the fiscal year ends July 30 or June 30th, but then somehow a month later, the appointments usually expire. So the planning board, I believe, oversees the design review board and are now doing the growth study committee.
Yes.
So I just wanted to let everybody know that we need to do that by July 22nd. And the trails committee, the trail coordination and management committee, Dave is currently the person on it. I believe you said you would like to serve again, but
Sure.
the planning board does
Awesome.
have a designee, so you would
Yep.
need to make that designation.
Okay, so we could do that right now.
Well, I don't know, it might be hotly contested.
I'll entertain a motion to have Dave continue with the Trails Committee.
Is it on the agenda though, or can we?
Yeah. Hold on.
I don't see it.
That's a really good
It's
question.
not on the agenda.
Nice one, Amy.
I wrote it because John asked me about it. So
Okay.
it's not on the agenda. Thank you very much.
We could vote that quickly
Yeah.
next time.
So we'll do it, yeah, we'll do it, and if we can, you know, do it explicitly so we make sure we cover it. And the design review board, must be you, yes or no?
I've done it this year and Deb's been the alternate, yeah.
Okay.
Dave was on it previously.
Okay.
So I've requested all the design review board members to let me know if they're interested in.
Oh, we do the whole.
The whole board every year.
Yeah.
So they all
Okay.
serve one-year appointments.
Thank you.
And actually,
Okay.
it's good that we have a little bit more time so I can get my property signs for my advertisement for running for.
So I've requested that
Trails
they,
committee.
Yeah.
I've requested that they let me know, and then we posted a notice, so you have to notice for all of these vacancies that if somebody wants to do it. they
Perfect.
can. And in that, we've basically kind of copied the growth study committee, 250 word statement just saying why. So
Okay.
I asked them to submit that as well.
Oh, you have to write an essay.
I already did mine.
Nice job.
How
Yes.
many applicants do we have for the growth study committee yet, if any?
None so far. Okay.
Just me?
Oh, yes, one, yes, right.
But there was a little hubbub for a few more. I can round that up. I can try to,
Did you apply as a member of the planning board for the planning board spot with an essay?
Yeah.
Bless your heart. She is like the overachiever on the board. I had no. Just kidding. Okay, awesome.
And then I had a question on the growth study committee.
Yes.
From somebody who was interested, and they were just wondering what the estimated time commitment.
So that is an excellent question, and they're going to have an opportunity, if they apply and get appointed, to determine what that time commitment is going to be. We don't really know. That's one of the reasons why we put together that mission statement and goal statement and so forth, was to try and give people some way of thinking about it, but I don't know what the time.
well, we came up with a timeline, and I would imagine it would meet every other week, you know, on a Thursday or
We don't know.
something, but we don't know.
We don't know.
So, but
the work is substantial.
But the work is substantial
Yes.
that would go into that meeting, so.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe up to 2 meetings a month? Because that, people need
I
to
wouldn't think
kinda
it's gonna be
know.
more than 2 meetings a
Yeah.
month, but it's kind of the time, it's not necessarily the time you sit in the meeting, it's the work
time-
that goes into it.
Right, it's the time that,
So I mean, I don't know,
yeah, there were, I've heard a little hubbub, online about a few people who might, and I can go back to that memo and see if people want to,
and in other news, I am going to meet, offline with, the chairman of the board, of the select board, I almost did it. Wow. I'm gonna meet with the chairman of the select board and, the chairman of the school committee, just to have a general top-level conversation about, what we hope to do collaboratively going forward.
awesome.
Okay. Okay, and then there was Legacy Farms North Trails. Is that why you're staying?
I wasn't sure if you wanted me there for.
Yeah, so we actually have to wrap up.
That's fine. It was just, I just wanted.
I would love to speak with you for a few minutes afterwards, but.
If the planning board wanted me to give just an update as to where that stands, I was
Yes,
happy
can
to
you
do
do
so.
it?
Yep, so we met with Vin, his engineer, Roy, and Peter Barbieri.
Yeah.
And they are currently in the process of redoing the site plan. They're gonna come into the planning board for a site plan modification based on the reduction of units, because they're moving
Yep.
some to payments in lieu. And they're also preparing documents to just outline all of the changes needed in the master plan special permit to change it based on the Article 36 and 37, or Article 37, I guess, really.
Okay.
Which agenda item is this, sorry?
It's to be considered at any time, or the Rafferty Road?
Legacy Farms North, yeah.
It's
No.
not any kind of
Not
agenda
really.
item, I just wanted to give an update,
Okay.
because we just had a
Oh.
meeting recently, just to let the board know that it's in the process.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Were there,
Excellent question.
I have a question. Are any of these to be considered items something that we should touch real quickly, so they don't get lost sometime?
So, I'm going to represent that we have to adjourn by 10, but if there is a pressing item, tell me.
I just have a clarity on a couple of
Yes.
those, I just real quick questions.
Yep.
So, so I can take a ride down there, the Rafferty Road, what's the issue with that? Disrepair?
Oh, yeah,
Legacy Farms North?
this winter it took a beating.
The
and
road
we were
itself,
trying-
the pavement, or?
How did this come on to here?
It was I don't remember who, somebody brought it up.
I
as
brought
a
it up.
discussion. Was it?
I brought it up, and it was in relationship to the construction traffic for the LNG, and we weren't
Okay,
sure.
so I can just look at the pavement, right?
Yeah, it's like potholed. It's, yeah.
All right, and just,
Is that something more for the DPW though?
well, so I think it goes to the broader conversation that we need to have on the fact that we've had a ribbon cutting and people are flying through there, but it's not an accepted road. And I don't know how pieces that were previous roads that are now part of Legacy Farms North are considered, and the piece of the road that is the brand-new piece of the road and an accepted road, and we have all those school kids, that issue going forward there. So I actually think that we need to have a formal agenda item
Right.
to understand
How to get that road approved?
the whole thing conceptually. So that brings us to mind, what's our agenda look like again? One more time around the sun?
On which day?
Well, let's look at that,
My 8th?
the 8th, just to introduce it.
So the 8th has a continued public hearing for Buckland Leonard at 7, continued public hearing for Whisper Way at 7:30, a new public hearing for Wood Street Solar at 8:30, and growth study committee interviews at 9.
So let's do it at 8:45? Did I follow you when you
It
said
gives
that?
you 15 minutes for the new public hearing.
It's not a new public, oh,
It is a new public hearing.
the 8:30 is a new public hearing. So back me up, maybe I meant 8:15. Did I mean 8:15?
You could, so.
Wait, 7:30 to 7:40.
7:30 is-
8:15. 7:30, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
Whisper Way,
Do I know where all-
Whisper Way is at 7:30.
No, I'm gonna talk
Oh,
to
good,
you. Yeah.
okay.
Whisper Way is at 7:30, and the new public hearing is at 8:30. So you have an hour for Whisper Way.
Which I think they asked for, if I remember correctly, did they? And we talked about doing an hour? And then the new public hearing is at 8:30.
Correct.
And then what's next? 9.
9 is the growth study committee interviews.
And 7 was what?
Buckland Leonard.
Oh, help me out, people. All right, what's in August? And are we gonna have one meeting for Dave?
So
in
that's the
August?
8th. That's July 8th. There's also a July 22nd.
Oh, go ahead to the 22nd.
So July 22nd is 7:30 is continued public hearing for 76 Main.
Yep,
8:30 is a continued public hearing for Maspinock Woods.
yep.
And 9 o'clock is a public hearing for the LNG line replacement. And 9:30 is a continued public hearing for 9B Street.
All right, so 7:30 to 8:30 is the gap, right, for 76?
And 7 to 8, 7:30 if you wanted to start.
7 to 7:30.
Do we have something at 7 or no?
September
So-
sounds really good.
Let's do,
So just to let people know what Mary was talking about I think it was last year, we decided to have August free.
August
For
free or
one-
one meeting?
one
Did we
meeting
have
off.
August
We have one
free?
meeting
We
in
had one
August,
meeting in
so-
August.
Last year?
This year.
No, last year, though, I think we had, do we have
We
it?
only skipped one meeting. We
Okay,
definitely
we're
didn't
on
skip
okay.
two.
Only one
Okay.
But nice try, Dave.
Well, whatever. I trust your memory is better than mine.
All right, so
That'd be
we only
nice,
have one
but-
meeting in August.
We have nothing on the agenda in August yet.
Oh, so here's the problem, though. If we're gonna actually attempt to solve something for the school bus situation,
School starts in end of
Yeah,
August.
yeah, it would need to be done soon.
it's not gonna happen by August, but
I mean, at least.
can we meet at 7? If we're gonna have one meeting in August, can we have 2 meetings that start at 7 in July?
Sure.
Yeah,
What,
I thought we already did that.
what authority do we have over the school bus situation?
The road. Simply put, it's the road acceptance.
So
That's the bottom line.
if I may, does the timing work to have a meeting in July to determine if it was determined that the planning board wants to accept the road,
No.
to then advertise for a special town meeting to then open it?
No, it doesn't work by August, but, I mean, by the end of August for sure. But let's at least start the conversation on the 22nd, starting at 7, for Legacy Farms North Road.
Sounds good.
Does anybody significant need to be invited that would help us with the jurisdiction of that?
Well, I definitely, you know what? Maybe you can trust the chair and and we'll think about that, because I think that that's an excellent idea, but on the fly, I don't have all the answers.
Maybe DPW?
Certainly DPW should be invited. Yeah, and I think the school committee should be in on the conversation too, and possibly the Board of Selectmen who did the ribbon cutting.
Select board.
And.
DPW here, we could talk about Rafferty Road as well.
And the repair on Rafferty Road, and also what the difference is between the pieces of Legacy Farms North that existed before and the one that's new, just so we understand the parameters of what we're understanding. Yes, Roy?
The former Rafferty Road.
I'm getting like Merrill.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, it's your job as you sit next to them.
Road became, as you know, Legacy North because I think it was, I don't know if it was the police or fire, someone wanted one length of road going all the way through, so there wasn't confusion. That road has been in disrepair for many years. I think it's gotten a little worse with, they did the entrance to the LNG, but that road has had significant movement and cracks in it for a long, long time.
Yeah, so I do not disagree, but part of what we're gonna have to figure out is the Legacy Farms North, as part of the Osmond, right, that, we didn't think of all these little things when we were talking about that. So we're gonna have to have a plan for the entirety of the road, but I fully embrace that, that old Rafferty Road was a tiny rickety road before we made it into Legacy Farms North. We just have to figure out a way forward that makes sense.
Great, thank you.
One last question.
Yes.
Moving a road from a private way to a public way, do we have cost information to know, like, what that impact is?
There is a whole process that goes with that for sure. Cost is, from my perspective, cost is gonna be a bit of a player in that there's, that potentially we need to contemplate a performance bond so that at the end of everything, the road is in the situation that, if we accepted it, right? If we entertained the concept of accepting it, we'd have to have a whole understanding of what that meant and what it was gonna look like at the end of all the construction that happens on the roads that are off that spine road.
Okay.
Excellent question, though.
Through the chair, though, I think the normal process, though, is the roads are built to our standards.
Yes.
Our regulations, so there shouldn't be a cost to accept it from private to public. It's just a town meeting, yes, we accept it.
But a special town meeting is not free. Having a special town meeting.
Right. I mean,
Well,
normally.
right, special town meeting is not free. Also, publicly maintaining the road and so forth is not free. So certainly cost implications play in there. And this would be different, right? This is different than anything we've done before.
And we had this conversation when we were talking about the LNG plan, about what was gonna be the, sort of the outfall from the trucks.
No, this is different. This is entirely different, but I understand you making the connection. This is different in that we are contemplating, trying to see if all the players in the game
that's true.
will
I was
accept,
thinking about the
consider
destruction.
accepting a road that is still has a lot of development happening off of it, right? So ordinarily, if you have a road with development, you don't accept the road until everything is where it needs to be. This spine road goes through. So Gary posited the idea, and we've talked a little bit about it in that, like Hayden Row is a road that goes through and it could have a development off of it. Hayden Row is a fully accepted road. It's just different though. It, without a doubt, is going to be a different question. However, without accepting the road, we're going to have a very hard time getting school buses to pick up what is going to be a greater and greater and greater number of school kids. The problem that we had this year is just going to get exponentially bigger. So this is an attempt to see if this is a way to address the whole thing. One way first, like the most permanent way first. I don't even know if it's possible.
But members of the select board or school committee may have other alternatives.
They may.
Too.
They may.
And one last
And to the
question.
chair, it was a state grant that built this road, so the state might be involved in its permission as well as to whether it's established.
I don't think so, but we can ask that question. Every question's
I was just
a
gonna
game.
joke, if only we had a select board person that could be here.
That was
It's
here.
right here.
I
But
know.
look!
I know, oh!
Did you have one more thing?
Just, does wood of this road and the school bus dilemma need to be approved before the start of the school year?
It can't, but it should.
It can't.
No, there's not enough time, right?
So if it gets approved in the middle of the school year, does that mean then buses would go down it and be able to pick up kids?
So, yes.
Okay.
But the school would have to work that out with the bus contractor, right? Or I guess they're
No.
already
no,
picking them
if
up,
it's a-
they're
if
just
it's a-
different route.
if they've signed the contract to provide buses, I mean, I don't know. The finer
It's probably
points of
still the
that.
same bus, yeah.
To that question, what is the process? How long
Well,
does it take?
you know what,
Why
we're
is
gonna
it-
talk about it when we put it on the agenda.
Okay.
And so, I don't think that Patrick and Rob have that document we received about the busing thing, because I think that we got that before they were on the boards. Maybe we get that would answer some of your questions.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Right, and the issue is they have to drive like a mile down the road to drop their kids off at the bus stop.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know if
heard,
you're aware of that or not.
no.
He
to-
was
He was
at
here
the
that- yeah,
campaign,
he was here.
campaign event when I heard about it.
Yeah, meet the candidates night, it was very well discussed.
Okay.
So if I may,
Yes, John,
again,
please
John
jump in.
Catino, 1 David Joseph. Yeah, to the chair's point, when we did the OSMED, we never tweaked our bylaws to take on a decade-long project. And normally, when a project is finished, we accept the roads. But in the last couple of town meetings, if you notice, we have accepted like 6, 8, 10 roads at a time for old developments that the town had been taking care of. Buses had been driving into those neighborhoods. The town had been plowing, the town had been picking up trash, the town has been doing everything. And now with this road, to the chair's point again, we had a ribbon cutting. We opened it up to the fanfare of taking away 15 or 20% of the traffic that normally would have gone downtown, and that people get off of it and get onto 85 without clogging up downtown. So the town is utilizing it, even with just the binder coat on it right now. The Legacy Farm people are plowing it and maintaining it. But it was one of these things, and that's why I was coming to see if this could be a hybrid of some sort, since we use it as a town road, and if there's something that we could just work out and make it work, because we've never had a plan, a development this big before, and how do we get around it?
I don't think we've ever.
So that's why I've been hanging around all night.
Well, perfect.
So
So
why-
do come back when we actually
No,
have it on the
it's
agenda.
always fun. I loved being on.
Do we know why the school is pushing back on the buses though? I mean,
So actually, we are
Okay.
going to adjourn, right? And we can ask the
I'll talk
school
to John in the
about.
hallway.
Yeah. But we do want to have the fuller discussion, and I think we do want the Board of Selectmen, who are players in this process, and the school committee certainly who are players in this process. And if, the bottom line is if there's a way that we can support a solution that works, I want us to be supporting that.
Is there any responsibility, just one question, is there any responsibility that we have to the state for?
Stop. It's not on the agenda.
Not anymore at all? Okay.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to
Just was
adjourn.
wondering.
So moved.
Second. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Actually, it is kind of on the. That's not by Western Nursery, yes? Haynes Farm? That's my street. Wait, where's Haynes Farm then? Oh, I have no idea where it is. I was totally off. Oh, yeah. Is that one of those small roads? Yes, it's two or three houses. Nice job, Kobe. Thank you so much.